Hello. Good
Well, good
afternoon.
morning.
How are you today, Quiz?
I'm good.
Mhm.
I'm reading a new piece here
Yeah.
from Fox News.
Oh,
Supreme Court
lovely.
has changed again, keeping in line with moving backwards 50 years. They're now going to begin court by yelling "Oye, oye, oye!"
I know, I know you're joking. Yes. Okay. Damn it. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Sandy, for being here to mod. Hi, Alice. Hi, Turtle Moves. Well, it's nice to see you guys. And Dan, nice welcome. And for everybody else coming in later. Hey, Brittany. Um, yeah, but I don't know. Turtle Moves wants to know what level of hell are we about to enter tonight. We couldn't
Ooh.
tell you. This was thrown at us last minute yesterday. The rumor is that it's going to have something to do with the videographer, Mr. Holden.
Oh, I heard it was Mark Meadows' assistant.
I heard it was Mark Meadows' sister too. That's what I say. There's like two different rumors going on. One is the videographer and all of that, that they learned something when they watched all the footage that he gave. And the other thing was that the assistant for Mark Meadows was going to testify. Either way, they put it as they have new information and a new expert witness on the roster that they want to
Wow,
present. So it will
this
be
is going to be
something
huge, then.
definitely new.
I
Welcome,
mean,
Tyler.
it's going to have to be huge because they had to get it out
Mhm.
right away. I mean,
Yeah. It was exciting because there was nothing scheduled for this week. We weren't supposed to have
right,
another one until July, and the July schedule wasn't out because there's the 4th of July here in
right.
America. It was going to be the holiday that week. It was going to be the week after. There was supposed to be two scheduled for that week, and we didn't know what days yet,
Now,
and we
this
didn't
is
know.
the fourth.
Ex-
This
hmm?
is the year in the 4th of July that we reenact Purge, right?
The purge? Oh my God! So you didn't say that. Don't even put that out there. No. Hey, Jean. Thank you. Welcome and grope. Grope in your back, Jean. Grope in your back. But no, yeah. No purge. No, no. Don't put that out there. No, do not. Do not. Do not. Like, can you imagine? Like,
Just don't
I
give
know
them any
that.
ideas, right?
No, like I know that's what it feels like, probably emotionally. That's kind of what it feels like right about now for a lot of people. And I don't blame you for being unsettled, um, emotional, or even fearful because the way things are going, it's not so great. I mean, they also just said that teachers can start leading prayer in school again.
And I'm
Which,
waiting for that one smart-ass teacher to open up with "Hail Satan"
hmm.
and watch her sue
Like, you
because
know
she
what?
got fired.
They weren't so specific about what prayer
They,
you were
they did
allowed.
not
Like,
say
they did
what
not
religion
say.
you could pray for. So,
Smart ass. Smart ass. There you go. It's not gonna be pleasant. It's not gonna be pleasant. The world is full of smart asses. It's not gonna be a good time. Yeah. Mm.
I mean, if I was
Nope.
the teacher and they said, "Okay, you can," and here's what gets me about it. It's not that they didn't make prayer mandatory; they haven't yet.
Hmm.
But I can promise you, those teachers who will lead prayer in their classrooms will not tell their students that it's optional.
That's right. They'll just be doing it. They won't say it's optional. They'll just act as if it's the status
And they
quo.
won't say you can leave if you don't want to hear it, or you can just sit there quietly. I mean, I get it. People have a right to pray. But guess what? I don't have, or I shouldn't have you invading my peace by praying
Hmm.
out loud to a fictional sky daddy.
There you go. Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing.
But that's.
Yeah. Mm. The other thing is that all of a sudden, YouTube has stopped putting out announcements for me. Like just the last stream, just the last two
I, I
streams.
got I got your
Mhm.
announcement.
You did? I didn't get it. I almost always get it. I didn't get one. Did anybody else get one? You know, YouTube didn't send me one. They weren't being very nice to me. Well, mm, Yeah, which one would be the preference? I guess it's whichever one the teacher decides, right, Jin? Like, yeah, that's making it a little weird. For, yeah.
If I was still in school, I would literally be doing research right now in the library, looking for the strangest religion that has the strangest prayers, and then I would be doing them
Mm-hmm. Yep.
in the middle of class, making a big scene and just having a go at them.
It's like so many, just like so many. Oh, you got coffee and you got your notification. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah. Oh, you did, Jin? Good, because I didn't get a 30-minute one. That's what I was talking about. Um, what is that I said about prayer in school? Yes, they just made a notification. They just made an announcement that it was okay that the teachers could then start uh, with prayer in school. They just did another opinion on a case that was done. That was, yeah, I read it. Yep, it must be true. I read it on Twitter. Ha ha. Hi, Kyle. Kyle's Goldfish. Nice to see you. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. You know.
And yes, it was SCOTUS who announced it yesterday morning that the coach who was in Washington State, who used to lead his team and whatever other players wanted to pray from the other side, on the 50-yard line before a football game, used to lead them in prayer, which, as we all know, since that's a school function, it shouldn't happen.
Right.
I mean, if you want to do it, go do it in your locker room where nobody has to watch and nobody else has to listen. Let the kids escape if they want out.
Right. Which
But
they do.
You can't expect. I mean, high school, especially high school guys, are not going to go against the grain of their football coach when they want playtime, because they know if they don't do what he's doing, he's going to be upset with them.
The pressure alone, most people would just feel the pressure unnecessarily, or just it being done in a formal setting like that. So yeah.
I guess so. This is going to lead to teachers opening up their day with prayer because they can. Not because they should, not because they shouldn't, not because it's right, not because it's wrong, but they can because they're Christians and they have the right to do it.
No. But that's basically what we're looking at now. Is like with all of this, is just a definite losing that separation a bit, church and state, that we have kind of been counting on somewhat.
Well, this is going to lead into religion classes again.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
It'll start with something as innocent as the study hall hour teacher holds discussions about religion during study hall. And that's okay because it's study hall. It's not really a set specific study or, or subject type of thing. So they can do what they want. It's either free study or you sleep or whatever. So they'll be allowed to do it. And then that'll lead into, okay, now it's going to be, why don't we just have religion classes? And only those, we'll make them elective so we don't have to, nobody has to take it that doesn't want it.
Exactly.
And then it'll be, religion classes are so helpful. Everybody's going to have to take them now.
Exactly. Yeah, I hear you. Hey, Jingo J, nice to see you here. I hope you've been well. Hi, Kim. Nice to see you. Organics. Nice. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. Puppies, kittens, and assorted life forms. Yes.
Well, okay. Kyle, that's the thing. They didn't mention what faith.
Or does it only apply to Christian teachers, or can Muslim and Hindu teachers open their classes with their prayers? Can't wait to see how that goes down with Republicans. Exactly. It's okay as long as they do it their way, right?
How about voodoo or witchcraft?
Yeah, like get a good goth Wiccan in there, a really cool teacher, influence him. Here we go. Everyone, and Alice has a point. Everyone is entitled to their religion, yes, but don't force your religion on others. This is what we're trying to say. That's why there's separation of church and state. I'm not saying they shouldn't have their religion. They can. Absolutely, 100%. But please, no, not in anything to do with the state. And that includes the education of our children. If you want to have religion in school, then open a religious school and send your children there. That's perfectly fine. And we have that in the United States.
We do have those. I mean, what's the big deal? Just send them there.
Yeah, and I'm testing your ability not to shout in caps. I know. I know, Sandy. Sorry about that. But yeah, those are the subjects, I've been in content stump. I write a script and I can't record. I'm sorry, Jingle. That happens to the best of us. I hope it resolves for you soon. You get your mojo back. Yeah.
Can I give Jingo a hint?
I'm afraid to. Jingo, as you noticed, I'm stuttering here. I'm afraid to answer.
Jingo, go to Bad Dragon. They'll give you lots of help.
Oh my God. Yeah, Google's gonna love you today. Hey, T King, welcome. Yep. It's a form of prayer. He says ancient pagan Saturnalia orgies because it's a form of prayer. Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to be doing that in school, but you never know.
Why not? This is how I pray.
Sometimes I don't think they think about what they're actually doing and saying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think we could start a gay religion and pray at the feet of other people.
Jin's got one here. His religion requires him to pray naked with a bear. He's joining. Hey, the more the merrier. Let's all just, Thank you, Jin. You're such a religious. You're so religious about your bear groping. I love it. Hey, Lurkin. Buddhism is a great one. I'm gonna go with that, Charlie. Yeah. Oh, especially bear Buddhism. As long as it's bear Buddhism, I'm in. Bear Buddhism. Hey, Jin, maybe that's what we could call our new religion.
Bear butts.
Bear butts are us. Oh God, this is supposed to be a serious stream. Stop it. Oh, I must ascend. Yes, I'm Charlie. I love you, Mr. Welch. I absolutely adore you. That was brilliant.
Okay, Charlie, now make up one for me.
Oh, I love it. Okay, yeah. So, Jin, we must make sure that Charlie is officially. He's going to have to be a priest or something. We have to make him one of the high court for sure. Oh gosh, how did this go bad so fast? I mean, it's only 20 minutes in, not even.
With us being smart enough to know that this is what's going to happen, all these weird shit's going to come out in school. How is it the idiots on the court did not see this happening?
I don't know.
I mean, why didn't somebody stand up and go, "Excuse me"? I'm just asking. Does this mean I can practice Wicca in school or voodoo?
The bishop is pointing. Yes, yes, Jin. Give Charlie that title. That's a good one. Okay. Kyle's goldfish. I'm with you. Start it up with light as a feather, stiff as a board. I'd start my class with that and see how that goes down. Kyle, this is good. You're right there. This is. Yep.
I want to hear the rest of that prayer though.
Yeah. Brittany says her religion is being sarcastic and naked on Wednesdays. I hear you, and it's only Tuesday. And it's only Tuesday.
I like that.
Select committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol will be in order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare the committee in recess at any point. Pursuant to House Deposition Authority Regulation 10, The chair announces the committee's approval to release the deposition material presented during this hearing. Good afternoon. In our hearings over the previous weeks, the Select Committee has laid out the details of a multi-part pressure campaign driven by the former president aimed at overturning the results of the 2020 presidential election and blocking the transfer of power. We've shown that this effort was based on a lie that the election was stolen, tainted by widespread fraud, Donald Trump's big lie. In the weeks ahead, the committee will hold additional hearings about how Donald Trump summoned a mob of his supporters to Washington, spurred them to march on the Capitol, and failed to take meaningful action to quell the violence as it was unfolding on January 6th. However, in recent days, the Select Committee has obtained new information dealing with what was going on in the White House on January 6th and in the days prior. Specific detailed information about what the former president and his top aides were doing and saying in those critical hours. Firsthand details of what transpired in the office of the White House Chief of Staff, just steps from the Oval Office as the threats of violence became clear, and indeed, violence ultimately descended on the Capitol in the attack on American democracy. It's important that the American people hear that information immediately. That's why, in consultation with the Vice Chair, I've recalled the committee for today's hearing. As you've seen and heard in our earlier hearings, the Select Committee has developed a massive body of evidence thanks to the many hundreds of witnesses who have voluntarily provided information relevant to our investigation. It hasn't always been easy to get that information because the same people who drove the former president's pressure campaign to overturn the election are now trying to cover up the truth about January 6th. But thanks to the courage of certain individuals, the truth won't be buried. The American people won't be left in the dark. Our witness today, Ms. Cassidy Hutchinson, has embodied that courage. I won't get into a lot of detail about Ms. Hutchinson's testimony will show. I'll allow her words to speak for themselves. And I hope everyone at home will listen very closely. First, I'll recognize our distinguished Vice Chair, Ms. Cheney of Wyoming, for any opening statements she'd care to offer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In our first 5 hearings, the committee has heard from a significant number of Republicans, including former Trump administration Justice Department officials, Trump campaign officials, several members of President Trump's White House staff, a prominent conservative judge, and several others. Today's witness, Ms. Cassidy Hutchinson, is another Republican and another former member of President Trump's White House staff. Certain of us in the House of Representatives recall that Ms. Hutchinson once worked for House Republican Whip Steve Scalise, but she is also a familiar face on Capitol Hill because she held a prominent role in the White House Legislative Affairs Office and later was the principal aide to President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Ms. Hutchinson has spent considerable time up here on Capitol Hill representing the Trump administration, and we welcome her back. Up until now, our hearings have each been organized to address specific elements of President Trump's plan to overturn the 2020 election. Today, we are departing somewhat from that model because Ms. Hutchinson's testimony touches on several important and cross-cutting topics that are relevant to each of our future hearings. In her role working for the White House Chief of Staff, Ms. Hutchinson handled a vast number of sensitive issues. She worked in the West Wing, several steps down the hall from the Oval Office. Ms. Hutchinson spoke daily with members of Congress, with high-ranking officials in the administration, with senior White House staff, including Mr. Meadows, with White House counsel, lawyers, and with Mr. Tony Ornato, who served as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. She also worked on a daily basis with members of the Secret Service who were posted in the White House. In short, Ms. Hutchinson was in a position to know a great deal about the happenings in the Trump White House. Ms. Hutchinson has already sat for 4 videotaped interviews with committee investigators, and we thank her very much for her cooperation and for her courage. We will cover certain, but not all, relevant topics within Ms. Hutchinson's knowledge today. Again, our future hearings will supply greater detail, putting the testimony today in a broader and more complete context. Today, you will hear Ms. Hutchinson relate certain firsthand observations of President Trump's conduct on January 6th. You will also hear new information regarding the actions and statements of Mr. Trump's senior advisors that day, including his Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, and his White House counsel. And we will begin to examine evidence bearing on what President Trump and members of the White House staff knew about the prospect for violence on January 6th, even before that violence began. To best communicate the information the committee has gathered, we will follow the practice of our recent hearings, playing videotape testimony from Ms. Hutchinson and others, and also posing questions to Ms. Hutchinson live. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Our witness today is Ms. Cassidy Hutchinson, who served in the Trump administration in the White House Office of Legislative Affairs from 2019 to 2020, and as a special assistant to the President in the White House Chief of Staff's office from March 2020 through January 2021. I will now swear in our witness. The witness will please stand and raise her right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated. Let the record reflect the witness answered in the affirmative. I now recognize myself for questions. Ms. Hutchinson, I'd like to start with a few questions about your background. These are some photographs we've obtained highlighting your career. These show you with members of Congress, including Steve Scalise, as well as the White House with leader Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan. Others show you with the President and members of Congress aboard Air Force One. Before you worked in the White House, you worked on Capitol Hill for Representative Steve Scalise, the Republican whip, and Senator Ted Cruz. And then in 2019, you moved to the White House and served there until the end of the Trump administration in 2020. When you started at the White House, you served in the Office of Legislative Affairs. We understand that you were initially hired as a staff assistant, but were soon promoted to a position of greater responsibility. Can you explain your role for the committee?
When I moved over to the White House Chief of Staff's office with Mr. Meadows when he became the 4th Chief of Staff, it's difficult to describe a typical day. I was a special assistant to the President and an advisor to the Chief of Staff. The days depended on what the President was doing that day, and that's kind of how my portfolio was reflected. I had a lot of outreach with members of Congress, senior cabinet officials. I would work on policy issues with relevant internal components and members on the Hill, as well as security protocol at the White House complex for Mr. Meadows and the President.
And then you received another promotion in March 2020. At that time, you became the principal aide to the new White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
What did a typical day look like for you in your work with Mr. Meadows?
It varied with what was going on. We spent a lot of time on the Hill. I spent time on the Hill independently too, as I was his liaison for Capitol Hill. We did a lot of presidential travel engagements, but mostly I was there to serve what the Chief of Staff needed, and a lot of times what the Chief of Staff needed was a reflection of what the President's schedule is detailed to do that day.
So is it fair to say that you spoke regularly in your position, both with members of Congress and with senior members of the Trump administration?
That's correct. That's a fair assessment, sir.
And would you say that in your work with Mr. Meadows, you are typically in contact with him and others in the White House throughout the day?
That's correct, sir. Mr. Meadows and I were in contact almost pretty much throughout every day, consistently.
Although so much of grave importance happens in the West Wing of the White House, it's quite a small building. Above me on the screen, you can see a map of the first floor of the West Wing of the White House. On the right, you can see the President's Oval Office. On the left, the Chief of Staff's office suite. Within the Chief of Staff's office suite is the heart of the West Wing, was your desk, which was between the Vice President's office, Ms. Kirshner's office, and the Oval Office. Ms. Hutchinson, is this an accurate depiction of where you were located?
It's accurate. It's a lot smaller than it looks.
Absolutely. Ms. Hutchinson, this is a photo that shows the short distance between your office and the President's Oval Office. And it only takes 5 to 10 seconds or so to walk down the hall from your office to the Oval Office. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Section 5C8 of House Resolution 503, the chair recognizes gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we will begin today with an exchange that first provided Ms. Hutchinson a tangible sense of the ongoing planning for the events of January 6th. On January 2nd, 4 days before the attack on our Capitol, President Trump's lead lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, was meeting with White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and others. Ms. Hutchinson, do you remember Mr. Giuliani meeting with Mr. Meadows on January 2nd, 2021?
I do. He met with Mr. Meadows in the evening of January 2nd, 2021.
And we understand that you walked Mr. Giuliani out of the White House that night, and he talked to you about January 6th. What do you remember him saying?
As Mr. Giuliani and I were walking to his vehicles that evening, he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day." I remember looking at him and saying, "Rudy, could you explain what's happening on the 6th?" He had responded something to the effect of, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful. He's going to be with the members. He's going to be with the senators. Talk to the chief about it. Talk to the chief about it. He knows about it."
And did you go back then up to the West Wing and tell Mr. Meadows about your conversation with Mr. Giuliani?
I did. After Mr. Giuliani had left the campus that evening, I went back up to our office and I found Mr. Meadows in his office on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone. I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, "I just had an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. Sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol." He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, "There's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th.
Ms. Hutchinson, Mr. Meadows is engaged in litigation with the committee to try to avoid testifying here. What was your reaction when he said to you things might get real bad?
In the days before January 2nd, I was apprehensive about the 6th. I had heard general plans for a rally. I had heard tentative movements to potentially go to the Capitol. But when hearing Rudy's take on January 6th and then Mark's response, that evening was the first moment that I remember feeling scared and nervous for what could happen on January 6th. And I had a deeper concern for what was happening with the planning aspects of it.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Today, we're going to be focusing primarily on the events of January 5th and 6th at the White House. But to begin and to frame the discussion, I want to talk about a conversation that you had with Mr. John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence. And you had this conversation in December of 2020. Mr. Ratcliffe was nominated by President Trump to oversee U.S. intelligence, our U.S. intelligence community. And before his appointment, Mr. Ratcliffe was a Republican member of Congress. As you will see on this clip, Director Ratcliffe's comments in December of 2020 were prescient.
My understanding was Director Ratcliffe didn't want much to do with the post-election period. Director Ratcliffe felt that it wasn't something that the White House should be pursuing. It felt it was dangerous for the president's legacy. He had expressed to me that he was concerned that it could spiral out of control and potentially be dangerous, either for our democracy or the way that things were going for the 6th.
When you say it wasn't something the White House should be pursuing, what's the it?
Trying to fight the results of the election, finding missing ballots, pressuring filing lawsuits in certain states where there didn't seem to be significant evidence, and reaching out to state legislatures about that. So pretty much the way that the White House is handling the post-election period, he felt that there could be dangerous repercussions in terms of precedents set for elections, for our democracy, for the 6th. He was hoping that we would concede.
So Ms. Hutchinson, now we're going to turn to certain information that was available before January 4th and what the Trump administration and the president knew about the potential for violence before January 6th. On the screen, you will see an email received by Acting Deputy Attorney General Donahue on January 4th from the National Security Division of the Department of Justice. Mr. Donahue testified in our hearings last week. The email identifies apparent planning by those coming to Washington on January 6th to, quote, occupy federal buildings and discussions of, quote, invading the Capitol building. Here's what Mr. Donahue said to us.
And we knew that if you have tens of thousands of very upset people showing up in Washington, D.C., that there was potential for violence.
The U.S. Secret Service was looking at similar information and watching the planned demonstrations. In fact, their intelligence division sent several emails to White House personnel like Deputy Chief of Staff Tony Ornato and the head of the President's Protective Detail, Robert Engel, including certain materials listing events like those on the screen. The White House continued to receive updates about planned demonstrations, including information regarding the Proud Boys organizing and planning to attend events on January 6th. Although Ms. Hutchinson has no detailed knowledge of any planning involving the Proud Boys for January 6th, she did note this.
I recall hearing the word Oath Keeper and hearing the word Proud Boys closer to the planning of the January 6th rally when Mr. Giuliani would be around.
On January 3rd, the Capitol Police issued a special event assessment. In that document, the Capitol Police noted that the Proud Boys and other groups planned to be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th and indicated that, quote, unlike previous post-election protests, the targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily the counter-protesters as they were previously, but rather Congress itself is the target on the 6th. Of course, we all know now that the Proud Boys showed up on January 6th, marched from the Washington Monument to the Capitol that day, and led the riotous mob to invade and occupy our Capitol. Ms. Hutchinson, I want to play you a clip of one of our meetings when you described a call on January 4th that you received from National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien on the same topic, potential violence on January 6th.
I received a call from Robert O'Brien, the National Security Advisor, he had asked if he could speak with Mr. Meadows about potential words of violence that he was hearing that were potentially going to happen on the Hill on January 6th. I had asked if he had connected with Tony Ornato because Tony Ornato had a conversation with Mark about that topic. Robert had said, I'll talk to Tony, and then I don't know if Robert ever connected with Mark about the issue.
Ms. Hutchinson, can you describe for us Mr. Ornato's responsibilities as Deputy Chief of Staff?
The Deputy Chief of Staff position at the White House for operations is arguably one of the most important positions that somebody can hold. They're in charge of all security protocol for the campus and all presidential protectees, primarily the president and the first family, but anything that requires security for any individual that has presidential protection, so the Chief of Staff or the National Security Advisor, as well as the Vice President's team too. Tony would oversee all of that, and he was the conduit for security protocol between White House staff and the United States Secret Service.
Thank you. And you also described a brief meeting between Mr. Ornato and Mr. Meadows on the potential for violence. The meeting was on January 4th. They were talking about the potential for violence on January 6th. Let's listen to a clip of that testimony.
I remember Mr. Ornato had talked to him about intelligence reports. I just remember Mr. Ornato coming in and saying that we had intel reports saying that there could potentially be violence on the 6th.
You also told us about reports of violence and weapons that the Secret Service were receiving on the night of January 5th and throughout the day on January 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There are reports that police in Washington, D.C. had arrested several people with firearms or ammunition following a separate pro-Trump rally in Freedom Plaza on the evening of January 5th. Are those some of the reports that you recall hearing about?
They are.
Of course, the world now knows that the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th had many different types of weapons. When a president speaks, the Secret Service typically requires those attending to pass through metal detectors, known as magnetometers, or MAGs for short. The Select Committee has learned that people who willingly entered the enclosed area for President Trump's speech were screened so they could attend the rally at the Ellipse. They had weapons and other items that were confiscated: pepper spray, knives, brass knuckles, tasers, body armor, gas masks, batons, blunt weapons. And those were just from the people who chose to go through the security for the president's event on the Ellipse, not the several thousand members of the crowd who refused to go through the MAGs and watched from the lawn near the Washington Monument. The Select Committee has learned about reports from outside the magnetometers and has obtained police radio transmissions identifying individuals with firearms, including AR-15s, near the Ellipse on the morning of January 6th. Let's listen.
There's an individual who's in a tree. He's going to be a white male, about 6 feet tall, tin build, brown cowboy boots. He's got blue jeans and a blue jean jacket, and underneath the blue jean jacket, the complainant's both saw stocked with AR-15. He's going to be with a group of individuals, about five to eight other individuals. Two of the individuals in that group at the base of the tree near the porta potties were wearing green fatigues, green olive drab style fatigues, about 5'8", 5'9", skinny white males, brown cowboy boots. They had Glock-style pistols in their waistband.
8736 with the message that subject, weapon on his right hip. After that, he's in the tree.
Motor 1, make sure BPD knows they have an elevated threat in the tree south side of Constitution Avenue. Look for the Don't Tread on Me flag, American flag face mask, cowboy boots, weapon on the right side hip.
I got 3 men walking down the street in fatigue while carrying AR-15. Copy at 14th and Independent.
AR-15s at 14th and Independence. As you saw in those emails, the first report that we showed, we now know was sent in the 8 o'clock hour on January 6th. This talked about people in the crowd wearing ballistic helmets and body armor, carrying radio equipment and military-grade backpacks. The second report we showed you on the screen was sent by the Secret Service in the 11 a.m. hour, and it addressed reports of a man with a rifle near the ellipse. Ms. Hutchinson, in prior testimony, you described for us a meeting in the White House around 10 a.m. in the morning of January 6th, involving Chief of Staff Meadows and Tony Ornato. Were you in that meeting?
I was.
Let's listen to your testimony about that meeting, and then we'll have some questions.
I think the last time we talked, you mentioned that some of the weapons that people had at the rally included flagpoles, oversized sticks or flagpoles, bear spray. Is there anything else that you recall hearing about that the people who would gather on the ellipse had?
I recall Tony and I having a conversation with Mark probably around 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m., where I remember Tony mentioning knives, guns in the form of pistols and rifles, bear spray, body armor, spears, and flagpoles. Spears were one item, flagpoles were one item, and then Tony had relayed to me something to the effect of, and these effing people are fastening spears onto the ends of flagpoles.
Ms. Hutchinson, here's a clip of your testimony regarding Mr. Meadows' response to learning that the rally attendees were armed that day.
What was Mark's reaction, Mr. Meadows' reaction to this list of weapons that people had in the crowd?
When Tony and I went in to talk to Mark that morning, Mark was sitting on his couch and on his phone, which was something typical. And I remember Tony just got right into it. I was like, sorry, I just want to let you know, and informed him, like, this is how many people we have outside the mags right now. These are the weapons that we're known to have. It's possible he listed more weapons off that I just don't recall. And gave him a brief but and concise explanation, but also fairly thorough. And I remember distinctly Mark not looking up from his phone. And I remember Tony finishing his explanation and it taking a few seconds for Mark to say something to the point where I almost said, Mark, did you hear him? And then Mark chimed in and was like, all right, anything else? Still looking down at his phone. And Tony looked at me and I looked at Tony and Tony said, no, sir, do you have any questions? It's like, what are you hearing? And I looked at Tony and I was like, sir, he just told you about what was happening down at the rallies. And he was like, yeah, I know. And then he looked up and said, have you talked to the president? And Tony said, yes, sir, he's aware too. And he said, all right, good.
He asked Tony if Tony had informed the president.
Yes.
And Tony said, yes, he had.
So, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that Mr. Ornato told the president about weapons at the rally on the morning of January 6th?
That's what Mr. Ornato relayed to me.
And here's how you characterize Mr. Meadows' general response when people raised concerns about what could happen on January 6th.
So at the time, in the days leading up to the 6th, there were lots of public reports about how things might go bad on the 6th, even the potential for violence. If I'm hearing you correctly, what stands out to you is that Mr. Meadows did not share those concerns, or at least did not act on those concerns?
Did not act on those concerns would be accurate.
But other people raised them to him, like in this exchange, you mentioned that Mr. Ornato pulled him aside.
That's correct.
Ms. Hutchinson, we're going to show now an exchange of texts between you and Deputy Chief of Staff Ornato. And these text messages were exchanged while you were at the ellipse. In one text, you write, but the crowd looks good from this vantage point as long as we get the shot. He was effing furious. And the text messages also stress that President Trump kept mentioning the OTR and off-the-record movement. We're going to come back and ask you about that in a minute. But could you tell us, first of all, who it is in the text who was furious?
The he in that text that I was referring to was the president.
And why was he furious, Ms. Hutchinson?
He was furious because he wanted the arena that we had on the ellipse to be maxed out at capacity for all attendees. The advance team had relayed to him that the mags were free flowing. Everybody who wanted to come in had already come in, but he still was angry about the extra space and wanted more people to come in.
And did you go to the rally in the presidential motorcade?
I was there, yes, in the motorcade.
And were you backstage with the president and other members of his staff and family?
I was.
And you told us, Ms. Hutchinson, about particular comments that you heard while you were in the tent area.
When we were in the offstage announce area tent behind the stage, he was very concerned about the shot, meaning the photograph that we would get, because the rally space wasn't full. One of the reasons, which I've previously stated, was because he wanted it to be full and for people to not feel excluded because they'd come far to watch him at the rally. And he felt the mags were at fault for not letting everybody in. But another leading reason, and likely the primary reason, is because he wanted it full and he was angry that we weren't letting people through the mags with weapons, what the Secret Service deems as weapons and our weapons. But when we were in the offstage announce tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, you know, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
Just to be clear, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that the president wanted to take the mags away and said that the armed individuals were not there to hurt him?
That's a fair assessment.
The issue wasn't with the amount of space available in the official rally area only, but instead that people did not want to have to go through the mags. Let's listen to a portion of what you told us about that.
In this particular instance, it wasn't the capacity of our space, it was the mags and the people that didn't want to come through. And that's what Tony had been trying to relay to him that morning. You know, it's not the issues that we encountered on the campaign. We have enough space, or they don't want to come in right now. They have weapons they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service, and they're fine on the mall. They can see you on the mall, and they want to march straight to the Capitol from the mall.
The president apparently wanted all attendees inside the official rally space and repeatedly said, quote, "They're not here to hurt me."
And just to be clear, so he was told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation, that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, and his response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away. They're not here to hurt me. Let them in. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol after the rally's over. They can march from the ellipse. Take the effing mags away. Then they can march to the Capitol.
Ms. Hutchinson, what we saw when those clips were playing were photos provided by the National Archives showing the president in the offstage tent before his speech on the ellipse. You were in some of those photos as well. And I just want to confirm that that is when you heard the president say people with weapons weren't there to hurt him and that he wanted the Secret Service to remove the magnetometers.
That's correct. In the photos that you displayed, we were standing towards the front of the tent with the TVs, really close to where he would walk out to go onto the stage. These conversations happened 2 to 3 minutes before he took the stage that morning.
Let's reflect on that for a moment. President Trump was aware that a number of the individuals in the crowd had weapons and were wearing body armor. And here's what President Trump instructed the crowd to do.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
And the crowd, as we know, did proceed to the Capitol. It soon became apparent to the Secret Service, including the Secret Service teams in the crowd, along with White House staff, that security at the Capitol would not be sufficient.
I'd had 2 or 3 phone conversations with Mr. Ornato when we were at the Ellipse, and then I had 4 men on Mr. Meadows' detail with me in between those individuals and then a few other bodies on the ground, just the Secret Service doing advance. They were getting notifications through their radios, and Mr. Ornato in one phone conversation had called me and said, make sure the chief knows that they're getting close to the Capitol. It's they're having trouble stacking bodies.
And Ms. Hutchinson, when you said they were having trouble stacking bodies, did you mean that law enforcement at the Capitol needed more people to defend the Capitol from the rioters?
It was becoming clear to us and to the Secret Service that Capitol Police officers were getting overrun at the security barricades outside of the Capitol building, and they were short people to defend the building against the rioters.
And you mentioned that Mr. Ornato was conveying this to you because he wanted you to tell Mr. Meadows. So did you tell Mr. Meadows that people were getting closer to the Capitol and that Capitol Police was having difficulty?
After I had the conversation with Mr. Meadows, after I had the conversation with Mr. Ornato, I went to have the discussion with Mr. Meadows. He was in a secure vehicle at the time making a call. So when I had gone over to the car, I went to open the door to let him know, and he had immediately shut it. I don't know who he was speaking with. It wasn't something that he regularly did, especially when I would go over to give him information. So I was a bit taken aback, but I didn't think much of it, and thinking that I would be able to have the conversation with him a few moments later.
And were you able to have that conversation a few moments later?
Probably about 20 to 25 minutes later. There was another period in between where he shut the door again. And then when he finally got out of the vehicle, we had the conversation. But at that point, there was a backlog of information that he should have been made aware of.
And so you opened the door to the control car and Mr. Meadows pulled it shut?
That's correct.
And he did that 2 times?
That's correct.
And when you finally were able to give Mr. Meadows the information about the violence at the Capitol, what was his reaction?
He almost had a lack of reaction. I remember him saying, all right, something to the effect of, how much longer does the president have left in his speech?
Again, much of this information about the potential for violence was known or learned before the onset of the violence, early enough for President Trump to take steps to prevent it. He could, for example, have urged the crowd at the Ellipse not to march to the Capitol. He could have condemned the violence immediately once it began, or he could have taken multiple other steps. But as we will see today and in later hearings, President Trump had something else in mind. One other question at this point, Ms. Hutchinson, were you aware of concerns that White House counsel Pat Cipollone or Eric Hirschman had about the language President Trump used in his Ellipse speech?
There were many discussions the morning of the 6th about the rhetoric of the speech that day. In my conversations with Mr. Hirschman, he had relayed that we would be foolish to include language that had been included at the president's request, which had lines along to the effect of, fight for Trump, we're going to march to the Capitol, I'll be there with you, fight for me, fight for what we're doing, fight for the movement. Things about the vice president at the time too. Both Mr. Hirschman and White House counsel's office were urging the speechwriters to not include that language for legal concerns and also for the optics of what it could portray the president wanting to do that day.
And we just heard the president say that he would be with his supporters as they marched to the Capitol. Even though he did not end up going, he certainly wanted to. Some have questioned whether President Trump genuinely planned to come here to the Capitol on January 6th. In his book, Mark Meadows falsely wrote that after President Trump gave his speech on January 6th, he told Mr. Meadows that he was, quote, speaking metaphorically about the walk to the Capitol. As you will see, Donald Trump was not speaking metaphorically. As we heard earlier, Rudy Giuliani told Ms. Hutchinson that Mr. Trump plans to travel to the Capitol on January 6th. I want to pause for just a moment to ask you, Ms. Hutchinson, to explain some of the terminology you will hear today. We've heard you use two different terms to describe plans for the president's movement to the Capitol or anywhere else. One of those is a scheduled movement, and another one is OTR. Could you describe for us what each of those mean?
A scheduled presidential movement is on his official schedule. It's notified to the press and to a wide range of staff that will be traveling with him. It's known to the public, known to the Secret Service, and they're able to coordinate the movement days in advance. An off-the-record movement is confined to the knowledge of a very, very small group of advisors and staff. Typically, a very small group of staff would travel with him, mostly that are just included in the national security package. You can pull an off-the-record movement together in less than an hour. It's a way to kind of circumvent having to release it to the press, if that's the goal of it, or to not have to have as many security parameters put in place ahead of time to make the movement happen.
Thank you. And let's turn back now to the president's plans to travel to the Capitol on January 6th. We know that White House counsel Pat Cipollone was concerned about the legal implications of such a trip, and he agreed with the Secret Service that it shouldn't happen. Ms. Hutchinson, did you have any conversations with Pat Cipollone about his concerns about the president going to the Capitol on January 6th?
On January 3rd, Mr. Cipollone had approached me, knowing that Mark had raised the prospect of going up to the Capitol on January 6th. Mr. Cipollone and I had a brief private conversation where he said to me, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. This would be legally a terrible idea for us. We have serious legal concerns if we go up to the Capitol that day. And he then urged me to continue relaying that to Mr. Meadows, because it's my understanding that Mr. Cipollone thought that Mr. Meadows was indeed pushing this along with the president.
And we understand, Ms. Hutchinson, that you also spoke to Mr. Cipollone on the morning of the 6th as you were about to go to the rally on the Ellipse. And Mr. Cipollone said something to you like, make sure the movement to the Capitol does not happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
Let's hear about some of those concerns that you mentioned earlier in one of your interviews with us.
Having a private conversation with Pat late in the afternoon of the 3rd or the 4th, that Pat was concerned it would look like we were obstructing justice or obstructing the electoral college count. And I apologize for probably not being very firm with my legal terms here, but that it would look like we were obstructing what was happening on Capitol Hill. And he was also worried that it would look like we were inciting a riot or encouraging a riot to erupt on the Capitol, at the Capitol.
In fact, in the days before January 6th and on January 6th itself, President Trump expressed to multiple White House aides that he wanted to go to the Capitol after his speech. Here's what various White House aides have told the committee about the president's desire to go to the Capitol.
Did the president tell you this, that he wanted to speak at the Capitol?
Correct, yes.
During the meeting in the dining room, did the idea of the president proceeding or walking to the Capitol on the 6th after his speech come up?
Walking to the Capitol? No.
Driving to the Capitol?
It came up.
Okay, how did it come up and what was discussed?
You brought it up. You said, I want to go down to the Capitol.
What about him marching to the Capitol on the 6th?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So it's kind of a general thing. I mean, to get into the specifics of it, I was aware of a desire of the president to potentially march to the or accompany the rally attendees to the Capitol.
When did you first hear about this idea of the president accompanying rally attendees to the Capitol on the 6th?
This was at the 6th. This was during the after he finished his remarks.
When the president said that he would be going to the Capitol during his speech on the ellipse, the Secret Service scrambled to find a way for him to go. We know this from witnesses and the Secret Service, also from messages among staff on the President's National Security Council. The NSC staff were monitoring the situation in real time. From messages among staff on the President's National Security Council. The NSC staff were monitoring the situation in real time, and you can see how the situation evolved in the following chat log that the committee has obtained. As you can see, NSC staff believed that Mogul, the president, was, quote, going to the Capitol, and, quote, they are finding the best route now. From these chats, we also know the staff learned of the attack on the Capitol in real time. When President Trump left the ellipse stage at 1:10, the staff knew that rioters had invaded the inaugural stage and Capitol Police were calling for all available officers to respond. When Republican leader Kevin McCarthy heard the president say he was going to the Capitol, he called you, Ms. Hutchinson. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
And in this text message, you told Tony Ornato, quote, McCarthy just called me too. And do you guys think you're coming to my office? Tell us about the call that day with Leader McCarthy during the president's speech on the ellipse.
I was still in the tent behind the stage, and when you're behind the stage, you can't really hear what's going on in front of you. So when Mr. McCarthy called me with this information, I answered the call and he sounded rushed, but also frustrated and angry at me. And I was confused because I didn't know what the president had just said. He then explained, the president just said he's marching to the Capitol. You told me this whole week you aren't coming up here. Why would you lie to me? I said, I'm not lying. I wasn't lying to you, sir. We're not going to the Capitol. And he said, well, he just said it on stage, Cassidy. Figure it out. Don't come up here. I said, I'll run the traps on this and I'll shoot you a text. I can assure you we're not coming up to the Capitol. We've already made that decision. He pressed a little bit more, believing me, but I think frustrated that the president had said that. And we ended the phone conversation after that. I called Mr. Ornato to reconfirm that we weren't going to the Capitol, and which is also in our text messages. I sent Mr. McCarthy another text telling him the affirmative that we were not going up to the Capitol, and he didn't respond after that.
And we understand, Ms. Hutchinson, that the plans for the president to come up to the Capitol had included discussions at some point about what the president would do when he came up to the Capitol on January 6th. Let's look at a clip of one of your interviews discussing that issue with the committee.
When you were talking about a scheduled movement, did anyone say what the president wanted to do when he got here?
No. Not that I can specifically remember. I remember hearing a few different ideas discussed between Mark and Scott Perry, Mark and Rudy Giuliani. I don't know which conversations were elevated to the president. I don't know what he personally wanted to do when he went up to the Capitol that day. I know that there were discussions about him having another speech outside of the Capitol before going in. I know that there was a conversation about him going into the House chamber at one point.
As we've all just heard, in the days leading up to January 6th, on the day of the speech, both before and during and after the rally speech, President Trump was pushing his staff to arrange for him to come up here to the Capitol during the electoral vote count. Let's turn now to what happened in the president's vehicle when the Secret Service told him he would not be going to the Capitol after his speech. First, here is the president's motorcade leaving the ellipse after his speech on January 6th. Ms. Hutchinson, when you returned to the White House in the motorcade after the president's speech, where did you go?
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato lingering outside of the office. Once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back. What happened?" Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, you don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing," the president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
And was Mr. Engel in the room as Mr. Ornato told you this story?
He was.
Did Mr. Engel correct or disagree with any part of the story from Mr. Ornato?
Mr. Engel did not correct or disagree with any part of the story.
Did Mr. Engel or Mr. Ornato ever after that tell you that what Mr. Ornato had just said was untrue?
Neither Mr. Ornato nor Mr. Engel told me ever that it was untrue.
And despite this altercation, this physical altercation, during the ride back to the White House, President Trump still demanded to go to the Capitol. Here's what Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary at the time, wrote in her personal notes and told the committee about President Trump's desire to go to the Capitol after returning to the White House.
When you wrote, POTUS wanted to walk to the Capitol, was that based solely on what the president said during his speech or anything that he or anybody else said afterwards?
So to the best of my recollection, I believe when we got back to the White House, he said he wanted to physically walk with the marchers. And according to my notes, he then said he'd be fine with just riding the Beast. But to the best of my recollection, he wanted to be a part of the march in some fashion.
Okay, and just for the record, the Beast refers to the presidential limousine?
Yes.
President Trump did not go to the Capitol that day. We understand that he blamed Mark Meadows for that.
So prior to leaving the rally site, when he got off the stage and everybody was making the movement back to the motorcade, I had overheard Mr. Meadows say to him then, as I had prior to Mr. Trump taking the stage that morning, that he was still working on getting an off the record movement to the Capitol. So when Mr. Trump took the stage, he was under the impression by Mr. Meadows that it was still possible. So when he got off the stage, I had relayed to Mr. Meadows that I had another conversation with Tony. The movement was still not possible. Mr. Meadows said, okay. And then as they proceeded to go to the motorcade, and Mr. Meadows had reiterated, we're going to work on it, sir. Talk to Bobby. Bobby has more information. Mark got into his vehicle, to my understanding. Trump got into the Beast. And after we had all arrived back at the White House, later in the day, it had been relayed to me via Mark that the president wasn't happy that Bobby didn't pull it off for him and that Mark didn't work hard enough to get the movement on the books.
The physical altercation that Ms. Hutchinson described in the presidential vehicle was not the first time that the president had become very angry about issues relating to the election. On December 1, 2020, Attorney General Barr said in an interview that the Department of Justice had now not found evidence of widespread election fraud sufficient to change the outcome of the election. Ms. Hutchinson, how did the president react to hearing that news?
Around the time that I understand the AP article went live, I remember hearing noise coming from down the hallway, so I poked my head out of the office and I saw the valet walking towards our office. He had said, get the chief down to the dining room, the president wants him. So Mark went down to the dining room and came back to the office a few minutes later. After Mark had returned, I left the office and went down to the dining room, and I noticed that the door was propped open and the valet was inside the dining room changing the tablecloth off of the dining room table. He motioned for me to come in and then pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantle and the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall, which was causing them to have to clean up. So I grabbed a towel and started wiping the ketchup off of the wall to help the valet out. And he said something to the effect of, he's really ticked off about this. I would stay clear of him for right now. He's really, really ticked off about this right now.
And Ms. Hutchinson, was this the only instance that you are aware of where the president threw dishes?
It's not.
And are there other instances in the dining room that you recall where he expressed his anger?
There were several times throughout my tenure with the Chief of Staff that I was aware of him either throwing dishes or flipping the tablecloth to let all the contents of the table go onto the floor and likely break or go everywhere.
And Ms. Hutchinson, Attorney General Barr described to the committee the president's angry reaction when he finally met with President Trump. Let's listen.
And I said, look, I know that you're dissatisfied with me, and I'm glad to offer my resignation. And he pounded the table very hard. Everyone sort of jumped, and he said, accept it.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. The chair requests those in the hearing room to remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted our witness from the room. Pursuant to the order of the committee of today, the chair declares the committee in recess for a period of approximately 10 minutes.
Well, there you have it. Now we know why they moved the hearing up. Just reading articles that say that this hearing was actually scheduled for July for this particular witness, Ms. Hutchinson's testimony with her deposition, but it's actually been increased fear and increased threats against her that have moved it up so that the testimony could take place and try to get all of the harassment and everything to like back down off her after her testimony, since once the deed is done, what you're going to do, right? But,
This is huge.
This is very huge.
This testimony proves that
people
not
knew.
only did the president know what was going on, but he failed to act.
He failed to act, but it also proves in, remember we were talking about the three, we needed to actually motivate the Department of Justice that actually something coordinated was happening here and it was actually meant to be an illegal act and they knew it, that we needed the three parts of the government to be involved. And we just heard testimony that definitely there were people that knew in the Senate and Congress that knew this was going to happen, knew what the president had planned and what was going on. And seemed to be fine with it. Mr. Meadows, in particular, did not do anything to warn anybody, whether he was complicit or not. It is absolutely evident that he knew what was going down, and he didn't make a move to protect anyone, to warn anyone, or to do anything. Now, I'm not going to say he helped them organize it, but it sure does appear that he knew everything about it from the testimony. And we talked about, making sure Congress, the executive, and the legal branch were all involved. Now, we know in previous testimony that we've heard through these trials, through this hearing, I misspeak, that many people in the Justice Department were aware because he was trying to remove the district attorney. He was trying to remove people that wouldn't agree with him and replace. So everyone there knew, like, there was a concerted effort there. They've already shown that. And we also know in the executive branch, because we have quotes from right inside the office, phone calls that he had with people, with the Electoral College and people involved in the elections themselves and in the states, phone calls documented right from that office where everybody around that works with him heard and knew what was going on and nobody did anything. So I think they're doing a good job of tying it all together pretty well. Hey, Liam, welcome. We are in a break. You did not miss it all. We are in the first 10-minute break. We just heard testimony from Mark Meadows, assistant Miss Hutchinson, right? Hutchinson or Hutchins? Yeah, and,
Hutchinson, isn't it?
Hutchinson, and we are.
Either way.
Yeah, she has confirmed that more than the president knew, that the president absolutely knew that was going to be happening and contributed to it, knew about the guns that people were carrying, knew of the imminent danger to everyone at the Capitol at the time, and was actively promoting it to continue to happen. At least that's my take on it. What do you think, Quiz?
Personally, I think that, they're going to nail him on his oath at this point. Yeah. Failing to protect the Capitol is part of his oath. I mean, he's the highest ranking American in the country, and and part of that oath does read to protect from foreign and domestic threats, and that day he did not. He allowed it to go on. He knew it was going on. I mean, when you think about it, this is starting to make even clearer sense, because we all saw it. We know that those, the police and the National Guard weren't told to come in until, what was it, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
All of that could have been avoided the first time they told him, this crowd is armed, and if you're going to send them to the Capitol, we need to get people down there, because we don't need them breaking into the Capitol.
What about
and yet
him
he
knowing
did.
that they're armed, and he was like, so what? Let them all in. Like, so what? Let them
they're
in.
my people. They're not here to hurt me. Well, that's a strange thing to say. Who are they here to hurt then?
And then his violent outburst at being told no, that he wasn't going to go.
This is Washington, D.C.
Okay.
where it's illegal to be armed around the Capitol.
Exactly. It's not, well, unless the president allows it, of course, he
Which,
wants to override
again,
everything. Yeah.
that is against the law.
It
You
is.
don't get to just say, well, who cares? They're not here to hurt me. I don't mind.
But when has he ever cared about the law? Look who we're talking about.
And that's exactly how it comes back to bite him in the ass. They can now
Which
get him
is,
on just,
yeah.
not fulfilling your oath as a president. You allowed this to happen. You knew it was going to happen. Any reasonable person can make an inference that we have armed people in the crowd. They're marching to the Capitol, and they're mad. Well, I wonder what they're going to do. You think they're going to have a picnic?
I think he knew exactly what they were going to do.
I do too.
It is appearing more and more to me that it was a concerned, planned event that he knew because he set it in motion, and that he was all for it. And this is at his direction. Nobody
and
else.
this now makes more sense as to why Congress pushed to finish up or to restart the count and to finish in that session. Because I am willing to bet if they wouldn't have done that, then he, being the president, would have enacted some sort of bullshit idea that since it wasn't done on the right day, it doesn't count. And now we have to have a whole new vote again.
Yeah. There's totally. Well, to have this aide to Mark Meadows come forward. She did give previous testimony about what was said about Mark Pence, like maybe Mike Pence, right? Maybe they had the right idea that they wanted to hang him. Maybe he didn't agree with the president anyway. Comments like that were being made, and she did give the deposition in regards to all the conversations in that room. She also testified previously in deposition about conversations that Mark Meadows had with Perry, and then all of a sudden started burning documents in his office. That's not normal behavior. Like you have a
reasonable man
you
can
start
now
burning.
infer why he was doing that. It wasn't because he suddenly needed to warm up. It wasn't because
it wasn't like
he
the
felt
heating.
like having a fire.
There was nothing. Let's just be clear that there was nothing wrong with the heat in the building, and it wasn't like he had to stoke the fire to get things going in it. No, he had a conversation with Perry. He panicked. He started burning documents from his office. That is suspicious at the very least. Also, as the chief of staff to the president, does he have the authority to burn anything in that office? So every single piece of paper in that office belong to the people and it's supposed to be archived? I mean, that is the way it is here.
It's not just the office of the president. It's anybody on the Capitol.
Because it's the Capitol. Everything. I mean,
everything
that
is supposed to be left
fail
alone.
To realize the archives have it all. They're supposed to have it all. We keep our history close. All of it. The good, the bad, and it belongs to the people. That's part of the deal.
We keep some of our history close.
Well, we try. Okay.
Mostly good. Sometimes we look away from stuff from the way back then.
Listen, I didn't say we acknowledge and do anything about it. I said we have it. We have it. Like, I'm not saying we acknowledge and did anything about it. No, I'm saying we have it. And
archives we're pushing that CTR stuff again. That TR. What is it? RCT. Oh my gosh! How could we do such a thing?
I know. There we go. Welcome, Adam. Hi, Didi. It's nice to see you. But yeah, no, I definitely get it. Boy, this is I can see why they pulled it up. We've had some very brave people come forward. The fact that she's coming in again for live testimony after those depositions and under this kind of harassment that she's been getting, I got to give this woman a lot of credit for doing the right thing.
I got to give her respect because she will not work in this position ever again. She won't work in this position. She won't get a position with anyone on the Capitol ever again.
Yes, Liam, I can't help what states do with their records, but federally we try to keep it the best we can. Like, there's still a record of some of it, but yeah. When he's talking about the state of Texas that ratified the history books. They changed them all. They rewrote them to their own curriculum and took out me some massive, massive parts. Oh, it's not bad manners, madam. Come and go as you like, sir. Yeah. We are in the first break. I wonder what's going to happen in the second. If there's another witness, I wonder what's going to go
Oh
on.
boy. Yeah, I mean, I'm really, as I say, and this was, tomorrow's going to be interesting to hear how Trump is blowing up for this.
Oh, I'm sure he right now. Let's talk about that. How about showing your two crawlers in the beast, man? Like, go ahead and you don't have your way, so you have a tantrum and a physical attack on people because you can't get your way. Way to go! Like, yeah.
Isn't that normal?
Yeah, that's presidential behavior for sure. Like, yeah, that's right there. It's in the manual, didn't you know, Quiz? Like, that's yeah, right there. I know it gets more and more messed up with every session. Godless, Godless Como, I have to agree with you there. The more I know, the more I believe that what I thought was going on was going on. And the more embarrassed I am that it was allowed to happen and it's taken this long for us all to know about it. But I am pleased that the information is coming out. Not pleased to what the information is, because gosh, this is hard to hear. This is kind of scary, actually. Very scary to know that this kind of stuff goes on. I mean, you all think it, it's possible, but to have it laid out this way is it's like
what makes it real scary is I've never in my life, I mean, and I'm a big history buff, so I've gone back and read over, the whole presidential assassinations and the attempted assassinations and, what went on and what they knew and what they didn't know.
Yeah, we're going to get my channel pulled down for the next things that come out of our mouth about that.
And I am shocked. I am shocked.
Where? Why?
That the Secret Service allowed a man with a handgun in the tree on the ellipse.
Yep. Yeah, for that length of time. Yeah, because what they're going
by the way, there's a threat in the sky. Oh, sure. Well, that's him. Yeah, okay. Well, we identified him. We got it. Thanks. What? Any other time in history, that tree would have been chopped down with that man still in it. It wouldn't have been. Come on down here, son. It'd been nope. Just chop it down. Go ahead.
I'm choking here. I'm just reading Sandy. I'm sorry. Everybody give Sandy a group, please. I just read this. She needed a hug. You should all just extend the gropes there, but groping away there, Sandy. Don't worry about it. We got you, girl. Yeah, but the guy up, yeah, that's it, Liam. They left him there because he was one of them, right? They're all like, well, yeah, he's the looker. Oh gosh, it's not funny. I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. It's really not. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, people walking down, Pennsylvania Boulevard with carrying AR-15s. I mean, I'm shocked. A lot of it, when Trump wanted to have his military parade.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes, but let me address this first before they come back in the middle. What scares me is, yes, we're hearing this, but I haven't seen any real sign that anything is going to be done about it. The checks and balances are looking more like a toothless poodle every day. And, I understand that frustration and what that looks like, and I get it. But you have to remember that the information has to be out there first. And let's remember this presidency for what it was, a complete dismantling of the checks and balances that normally take place. Don't forget, he gutted every single one of those committees and balances that could have taken care of something like this right away. They're gone. They were not replaced and they were not put in place. So I understand.
Committee will be in order.
Too. Yeah.
Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Vice Chair Cheney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we turn to what Ms. Hutchinson saw and heard in the White House during the violent attack on the Capitol on January 6th, let's discuss certain communications White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows had on January 5th. President Trump's associate, Roger Stone, attended rallies during the afternoon and the evening of January 5th in Washington, D.C. On January 5th and 6th, Mr. Stone was photographed with multiple members of the Oath Keepers who were allegedly serving as his security detail. As we now know, multiple members of that organization have been charged with or pled guilty to crimes associated with January 6th. Mr. Stone has invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination before this committee. General Michael Flynn has also taken the fifth before this committee. Mr. Stone previously had been convicted of other federal crimes unrelated to January 6th. General Flynn had pleaded guilty to a felony charge also predating and unrelated to January 6th. President Trump pardoned General Flynn just weeks after the presidential election. And in July of 2020, he commuted the sentence Roger Stone was to serve. The night before January 6th, President Trump instructed his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, to contact both Roger Stone and Michael Flynn regarding what would play out the next day. Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that President Trump asked Mark Meadows to speak with Roger Stone and General Flynn on January 5th?
That's correct. That is my understanding.
And Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that Mr. Meadows called Mr. Stone on the 5th?
I'm under the impression that Mr. Meadows did complete both a call to Mr. Stone and General Flynn the evening of the 5th.
And do you know what they talked about that evening, Ms. Hutchinson?
I'm not sure.
Is it your understanding that Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Eastman, and others had set up what has been called, quote, a war room at the Willard Hotel on the night of the 5th?
I was aware of that the night of the 5th.
And do you know if Mr. Meadows ever intended to go to the Willard Hotel on the night of the 5th?
Mr. Meadows had a conversation with me where he wanted me to work with Secret Service on a movement from the White House to the Willard Hotel so he could attend the meeting or meetings with Mr. Giuliani and his associates in the war room.
And what was your view as to whether or not Mr. Meadows should go to the Willard that night?
I had made it clear to Mr. Meadows that I didn't believe it was a smart idea for him to go to the Willard Hotel that night. I wasn't sure everything that was going on at the Willard Hotel, although I knew enough about what Mr. Giuliani and his associates were pushing during this period. I didn't think that it was something appropriate for the White House Chief of Staff to attend or to consider involvement in. I made that clear to Mr. Meadows. Throughout the afternoon, he mentioned a few more times going up to the Willard Hotel that evening, and then eventually dropped the subject the night of the 5th and said that he would dial in instead.
So General Flynn has appeared before this committee, and when he appeared before our committee, he took the 5th. Let's briefly view a clip of General Mike Flynn taking the Fifth Amendment. General Flynn, do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified?
Do we have?
Yes.
All right, we're back. Congressman Cheney, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. General Flynn, do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified?
Is that, can I get clarification? Is that a moral question or are you asking a legal question?
I'm asking both.
I said the 5th.
Do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified morally?
Take the 5th.
You believe the violence on January 6th was justified legally?
5th.
General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power in the United States of America?
The 5th.
Let's move on now to January 6th and the conduct of Donald Trump and Mark Meadows during the attack on the Capitol. Ms. Hutchinson, I'd like now for us to listen to a description, your description of what transpired in the West Wing during the attack. For context, in this clip, you describe the time frame starting at about 2 p.m.
So I remember Mark being alone in his office for quite some time, and I know we've spoken about Ben Williamson going in at one point, and I don't personally remember Ben going in. I don't doubt that he had gone in, but I remember him being alone in his office for most of the afternoon, around 2 o'clock to 2:05. Around 2 o'clock to 2:05, we were watching the TV, and I could see that the rioters were getting closer and closer to the Capitol. Mark still hadn't popped out of his office or said anything about it. So that's when I went into his office. I saw that he was sitting on his couch on his cell phone. Same as the morning where he was just kind of scrolling and typing. I said, "Hey, are you watching the TV, Chief?" His TV was small, and you can see it, but I didn't know if he was really paying attention. I said, "You watching the TV, Chief?" He was like, "Yeah." "The rioters are getting really close. Have you talked to the president?" He said, "No, he wants to be alone right now." Still looking at his phone. So I start to get frustrated because I sort of felt like I was watching this is not a great comparison, but a bad car accident that was about to happen where you can't stop it, but you want to be able to do something. And I remember thinking in that moment, Mark needs to snap out of this, and I don't know how to snap him out of this, but he needs to care. And I just remember I blurted out, I said, "Mark, do you know where Jim's at right now?" And he looked up at me at that point and said, "Jim?" I said, "Mark, he was on the floor a little while ago giving a floor speech. Did you listen?" He said, "Yeah, it was real good. Did you like it?" And I said, "Yeah. Do you know where he's at right now?" He said, "Well, no, I haven't heard from him." And I said, "You might want to check in with him, Mark." And I remember pointing at the TV and I said, "The rioters are getting close. They might get in." And he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "All right, I'll give him a call."
Not long after the rioters broke into the Capitol, you described what happened with White House counsel Pat Cipollone.
No more than a minute and a half later, I see Pat Cipollone barreling down the hallway towards our office and rushed right in, looked at me, said, "Is Mark in his office?" And I said, "Yes." He just looked at me and started shaking his head and went over, opened Mark's office door, stood there with the door propped open, and said something to the Mark is still sitting on his phone. I remember glancing and he's still sitting on his phone. And I remember Pat saying to him something to the effect of, "The rioters have gotten to the Capitol, Mark. We need to go down and see the president now." And Mark looked up at him and said, "He doesn't want to do anything, Pat." And Pat said something to the effect of, and very clearly had said this to Mark, something to the effect of, "Mark, something needs to be done or people are going to die and the blood's going to be on your effing hands. This is getting out of control. I'm going down there." And at that point, Mark stood up from his couch, both of his phones in his hand. He had his glasses on still. He walked out with Pat. He put both of his phones on my desk and said, "Let me know if Jim calls." And they walked out and went down to the dining room.
A few minutes later, Representative Jordan called back.
A couple minutes later, so likely around between 2:15 and 2:25. I know the tweet went out at 2:24. I don't remember if I was there when the tweet went out or if it happened right afterwards, but Jim had called. I answered the phone, said 1 second. He knew it was, I guess he knew it was me. I introduced myself, but I don't remember if he called my cell phone or if he had called one of Mark's. But I answered the phone and said, 1 sec, Mark's on the hall. I'm going to go hand the phone to him. He said, "Okay." So I went down. I asked the valet if Mark was in the dining room. The valet said yes. I opened the door to the dining room, briefly stepped in to get Mark's attention, showed him the phone, like flipped the phone his way so he could see it said Jim Jordan. He had stepped to where I was standing there holding the door open took the phone talking to Jim with the door still propped open. So I took a few steps back. So I probably was 2 feet from Mark. He was standing in the doorway going to the Oval Office dining room. They had a brief conversation, and in the crossfires, you know, I heard briefly like what they were talking about, but in the background, I had heard conversations in the Oval dining room at that point talking about the hang Mike Pence chants.
That clip ended, Ms. Hutchinson, with you recalling that you heard the president, Mr. Meadows, and the White House counsel discussing the hang Mike Pence chants. And then you described for us what happened next.
Wasn't until Mark hung up the phone, handed it back to me. I went back to my desk. A couple minutes later, him and Pat came back, possibly Eric Hirschman too. I'm pretty sure Eric Hirschman was there, but I'm confident it was Pat that was there. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, "Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung." And Mark had responded something to the effect of, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong." To which Pat said something, "This is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more." Briefly stepped into Mark's office. And when Mark had said something to the effect of, "He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong," knowing what I had heard briefly in the dining room, coupled with Pat discussing the hang Mike Pence chants in the lobby of our office, and then Mark's response, I understood there to be the rioters in the Capitol that were chanting for the vice president to be hung.
Let me pause here on this point. As rioters chanted hang Mike Pence, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, said that, quote, Mike deserves it, and that those rioters were not doing anything wrong. This is a sentiment that he has expressed at other times as well. In an interview with ABC News correspondent Jonathan Karl, President Trump was asked about the supporters chanting hang Mike Pence last year. Instead of condemning them, the former president defended them.
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
President Trump's view that the rioters were not doing anything wrong and that, quote, Mike deserved it, helps us to understand why the president did not ask the rioters to leave the Capitol for multiple hours. In fact, he put this tweet out at 2:24 p.m. Ms. Hutchinson, do you recall seeing this tweet in which the president said the vice president did not have the courage to do what needed to be done?
I do.
Ms. Hutchinson, what was your reaction when you saw this tweet?
As a staffer that worked to always represent the administration to the best of my ability and to showcase the good things that he had done for the country, I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. It was really sad. As an American, I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie. And it was something that was really hard in that moment to digest, knowing what I'd been hearing down the hall in the conversations that were happening, seeing that tweet come up and knowing what was happening on the Hill. And it's something that I still struggle to work through the emotions of that.
Ms. Hutchinson, we have also spoken to multiple other White House staff about their reaction to Donald Trump's 2/24 tweet, condemning Mike Pence for not having the courage to refuse to count electoral votes, an act that would have been illegal. Matthew Pottinger, a former Marine intelligence officer who served in the White House for 4 years, including as Deputy National Security Advisor, was in the vicinity of the Oval Office at various points throughout the day. When he saw that tweet, he immediately decided to resign his position. Let's watch him describe his reaction to the president's tweet.
One of my staff brought me a printout of a tweet by the president. And the tweet said something to the effect that Mike Pence, the vice president, didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. I read that tweet and made a decision at that moment to resign. That's where I knew that I was leaving that day once I read that tweet.
Ultimately, members of the White House staff, Sarah Matthews, cabinet members, Secretary Chao and Secretary DeVos resigned as well. Here is Secretary DeVos's resignation letter. As you can see, in resigning on January 6th, Secretary DeVos said to the president, quote, "There's no mistaking the impact your rhetoric had on the situation, and it is the inflection point for me." Let's also look at Secretary Chao's resignation statement. When Secretary Chao resigned, she spoke of the January 6th attack, and she said, quote, "As I am sure is the case with many of you, this has deeply troubled me in a way I simply cannot set aside." Ms. Hutchinson, in our prior interviews, we've asked you about what the president's advisors were urging him to do during the attack. You've described roughly 3 different camps of thought inside the White House that day. Can you tell us about those?
There was a group of individuals that were strongly urging him to take immediate and swift action. I would classify the White House counsel's office, Mr. Hirschman, Ms. Ivanka Trump in that category of really working to get him to take action and pleading with him to take action. There was a more neutral group where advisors were trying to toe the line, knowing that Mr. Trump didn't necessarily want to take immediate action and condemn the riots, but knowing something needed to be done. And then there was the last group, which was deflect and blame. Let's blame Antifa. These aren't our people. It's my understanding that Mr. Meadows was in the deflect and blame category, but he did end up taking a more neutral route, knowing that there were several advisors in the president's circle urging him to take more action, which I think was reflected in the rhetoric released later that day in the videos.
You told us that the White House counsel's office was in the camp encouraging the president to tell the rioters to stop the attack and to leave the Capitol. Let's listen.
White House counsel's office wanted there to be a strong statement out to condemn the rioters. I'm confident in that.
Now let's look at just one example of what some senior advisors to the president were urging. Ms. Hutchinson, could you look at the exhibit that we're showing on the screen now? Have you seen this note before?
That's a note that I wrote at the direction of the Chief of Staff on January 6th, likely around 3 o'clock.
And it's written on a Chief of Staff note card, but that's your handwriting, Ms. Hutchinson?
That's my handwriting.
And why did you write this note?
The Chief of Staff was in a meeting with Eric Hirschman and potentially Mr. Philbin, and they had rushed out of the office fairly quickly. Mark had handed me the note card with one of his pens and started dictating a statement for the president to potentially put out.
And no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. There were 2 phrases on there, one illegal and then one without proper authority. The illegal phrase was the one that Mr. Meadows had dictated to me. Mr. Hirschman had chimed in and said, also put without legal authority. there should have been a slash between the two phrases. It was an or if the president had opted to put one of those statements out. Evidently, he didn't. Later that afternoon, Mark came back from the Oval Dining Room and put the palm card on my desk with illegally crossed out, but said we didn't need to take further action on that statement.
So, to your knowledge, this statement was never issued?
It was, to my knowledge, it was never issued.
And Ms. Hutchinson, did you understand that Ivanka Trump wanted her father to send people home?
That's my understanding, yes.
Let's play a clip of you addressing that issue.
I remember her saying at various points, she wanted her dad to send them home. She wanted her dad to tell them to go home peacefully, and she wanted to include language that he necessarily wasn't on board with at the time.
You will hear more about this at our later hearings, but we have evidence of many others imploring Donald Trump and Mark Meadows to take action. Here is some of that evidence, text messages sent to Mark Meadows during the attack. This is a text message at 2:32 from Laura Ingram. Hey, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. In the next message, this is hurting all of us. And then he's destroying his legacy and playing into every stereotype. We lose all credibility against the BLM Antifa crowd if things go south. The president's son, Don Jr., also urgently contacted Mark Meadows. At 2:53, he wrote, he's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. As you will see, these are just two of the numerous examples of Trump supporters and allies urging the president to tell his supporters to leave the Capitol. It would not have been hard for the president to simply walk down to the briefing room a few feet down the hall from the Oval Office. As Nora O'Donnell noted during an interview with House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, where Leader McCarthy said he believed the attack was un-American.
I want to quickly bring in Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader. Leader McCarthy, do you condemn this violence?
I completely condemn the violence in the Capitol. What we're currently watching unfold is un-American. I am disappointed. I'm sad. This is not what our country should look like. This is not who we are. This is not the First Amendment. This has to stop, and this has to stop now.
Leader McCarthy, the President of the United States has a briefing room steps from the Oval Office. The cameras are hot 24/7, as you know. Why hasn't he walked down and said that now?
I conveyed to the president what I think is best to do, and I'm hopeful the president will do it.
Republican House member Mike Gallagher also implored the president to call off the attack.
Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off. The election is over. Call it off. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than any member of Congress. It is about the United States of America, which is more important than any politician. Call it off. It's over.
Despite the fact that many people close to Donald Trump were urging him to send people home, he did not do so until later, much later. At 4:17 p.m., Donald Trump finally told the rioters to go home and that he loved them. Here's a portion of the video President Trump recorded from the White House.
We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
But as we will show in even greater detail in future hearings, Donald Trump was reluctant to put this message out, and he still could not bring himself to condemn the attack. Ms. Hutchinson has told us that too.
The one that he put out at 4:17.
I'm sure we've discussed it, and just to elaborate if I hadn't already at that point. I recall him being reluctant to film the video on the 6th. I was not involved in any of the logistics or the planning for that video. I just remember seeing the video go out and feeling a little shocked after it went out.
On the evening of January 6th and the day after, the president's family and his senior staff and others tried to encourage the president to condemn the violence and commit to the peaceful transition of power. At 3:31 p.m. on January 6th, Sean Hannity of Fox News texted Mark Meadows. Mr. Hannity said, quote, "Can he make a statement? I saw the tweet. Ask people to leave the Capitol." Later that evening, Mr. Hannity sent another text message to Mark Meadows. This time, he shared a link to a tweet. That tweet reported that President Trump's cabinet secretaries were considering invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office. As you can see on the screen, the 25th Amendment to the Constitution creates a process for the transition of power if a president is unfit or unable to serve. The 25th Amendment has never been used to remove a president. But the committee has learned that after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, this was being discussed by members of President Trump's cabinet as a way of stripping the full power of the presidency from Donald Trump. President Trump's supporters were worried. In addition to the tweet that he sent Mark Meadows after the attack, Sean Hannity apparently spoke with President Trump and warned him about what could happen. We understand that this text message that Sean Hannity sent to Kayleigh McEnany on January 7th shows what Mr. Hannity said to the president. First, no more stolen election talk. Second, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real. Many people will quit. Ms. Hutchinson, you told us that you were hearing about discussions related to the 25th Amendment. Here's part of what you said.
Mr. Pompeo reached out to have the conversation with Mr. Meadows in case he hadn't heard the discussions amongst cabinet secretaries. And from what I understand, it was more of a, this is what I'm hearing. I want you to be aware of it, but I also think it's worth putting on your radar because you are the chief of staff. You're technically the boss of all the cabinet secretaries. And, you know, if conversations progress, you should be ready to take action on this. Like, I'm concerned for you and your positioning with this. You know, reach out to me if you have any questions or like I could be helpful with you at all.
Inside the White House, the president's advisors, including members of his family, wanted him to deliver a speech to the country. Deputy White House counsel Pat Philbin prepared the first draft of what would be the president's remarks on national healing, delivered via pre-taped video on January 7th. When he arrived at the White House on the 7th, Mr. Philbin believed that more needed to be said, so he sat down and started writing. He shared the draft with Pat Cipollone, who also believed the president needed to say more. Mr. Cipollone agreed with the content, as did Eric Hirschman, who reviewed the draft. The committee has learned that the president did not agree with the substance as drafted and resisted giving a speech at all. Ms. Hutchinson, do you recall discussions about the president's speech on January 7th?
I do.
Let's listen, Ms. Hutchinson, to what you told us about that and about the process of crafting those remarks.
I learned from a conversation with Mark and overhearing between him and White House counsel and Eric Hirschman as well that Trump didn't necessarily think he needed to do anything more on the 7th than what he had already done on the 6th. When he was convinced to put out a video on the 7th, I understand that he had a lot of opinions about what the context of that announcement were to entail. I had original drafts of the speech where there were several lines that didn't make it in there about prosecuting the rioters or calling them violent. He didn't want that in there. He wanted to put in there that he wanted to potentially pardon them. And this is just with the increased emphasis of his mindset at the time, which was he didn't think that they did anything wrong. The people who did something wrong that day, or the person who did something wrong that day, was Mike Pence by not standing with him.
But the president's advisors urged him to give the speech.
Who convinced him to do the video on the 7th?
I'm not sure who convinced him or if it was a group of people that convinced him.
Who was in the group that you're aware of?
That I'm aware of: Mark, Ivanka, Jared Kushner, Eric Hirschman, Pat Zabloni, Pat Philbin. Those are the people that I'm aware of.
Do you know why that group of people thought it was necessary for him to release a statement?
I believe Kayleigh McEnany as well. From what I understood at the time, and from what the reports were coming in, there's a large concern of the 25th Amendment potentially being invoked, and there were concerns about what would happen in the Senate if the 25th was invoked. So the primary reason that I had heard, other than, we did not do enough on the 6th, we need to get a stronger message out there and condemn this, otherwise this will be our legacy. The secondary reason to that was, think about what might happen in the final 15 days of your presidency if we don't do this. There's already talks about invoking the 25th Amendment. You need this as cover.
The president ultimately delivered the remarks. Unlike many of his other speeches, he did not ad-lib much. He recited them without significant alteration, except one. Even then, on January 7th, 2021, the day after the attack on the US Capitol, the president still could not bring himself to say, quote, "But this election is now over." One other point about the speech, Ms. Hutchinson, did you hear that Mr. Trump at one point wanted to add language about pardoning those who took part in the January 6th riot?
I did hear that, and I understand that Mr. Meadows was encouraging that language as well.
Thank you, and here's what you told us previously about that.
You said he was instructed not to include it. Who was instructing him not to include language about the pardon in that January 7th?
I understood from White House counsel's office coming into our office that morning that they didn't think that it was a good idea to include that in the speech.
That being Pat Zabloni?
That's correct. And Eric Hirschman.
Ms. Hutchinson, did Rudy Giuliani ever suggest that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
He did.
Ms. Hutchinson, did White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows ever indicate that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
Mr. Meadows did seek that pardon. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I want to thank our witness for joining us today. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for today's witness, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing to those questions. Without objections, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions for the witness. Without objection, the chair recognizes the vice chair for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin by thanking Ms. Hutchinson for her testimony today. We are all in her debt. Our nation is preserved by those who abide by their oaths to our Constitution. Our nation is preserved by those who know the fundamental difference between right and wrong. And I want all Americans to know that what Ms. Hutchinson has done today is not easy. The easy course is to hide from the spotlight, to refuse to come forward, to attempt to downplay or deny what happened. That brings me to a different topic. While our committee has seen many witnesses, including many Republicans, testify fully and forthrightly, this has not been true of every witness. And we have received evidence of one particular practice that raises significant concern. Our committee commonly asks witnesses connected to Mr. Trump's administration or campaign, whether they've been contacted by any of their former colleagues or anyone else who attempted to influence or impact their testimony. Without identifying any of the individuals involved, let me show you a couple of samples of answers we received to this question. First, here's how one witness described phone calls from people interested in that witness's testimony. Quote, "What they said to me is as long as I continue to be a team player, they know I'm on the right team. I'm doing the right thing. I'm protecting who I need to protect. You know I'll continue to stay in good graces in Trump world. And they have reminded me a couple of times that Trump does read transcripts, and just keep that in mind as I proceed through my interviews with the committee." Here's another sample in a different context. This is a call received by one of our witnesses. Quote, "A person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you. He knows you're loyal and you're going to do the right thing when you go in for your deposition." I think most Americans know that attempting to influence witnesses to testify untruthfully presents very serious concerns. We will be discussing these issues as a committee, carefully considering our next steps. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. Ms. Hutchinson, thank you. Thank you for doing your patriotic duty and helping the American people get a complete understanding of January 6th and its causes. Thank you for your courage in testifying here today. You have the gratitude of this committee and your country. I know it wasn't easy to sit here today and answer these questions, but after hearing your testimony in all its candor and detail, I want to speak directly to the handful of witnesses who have been outliers in our investigation, the small number who have defied us outright, those whose memories have failed them again and again on the most important details, and to those who fear Donald Trump and his enablers. Because of this courageous woman and others like her, your attempt to hide the truth from the American people will fail. And to that group of witnesses, if you've heard this testimony today and suddenly you remember things you couldn't previously recall, or there are some details you'd like to clarify, or you discovered some courage you had hidden away somewhere, our doors remain open. The Select Committee will reconvene in the weeks ahead as we continue to lay out our findings to the American people. The chair requests those in the hearing room to remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted the witness and members from the room. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
And there we have it. Another hearing in the books. Yep.
Yeah, this was rough. I mean, it's not rough for us.
I mean, it was factual, it was evidential, it was well laid out, it was it kind of ties a lot of things up.
Yeah, it's putting a nice little bow on everything, that's for sure.
Mr. Meadows, you better come and testify. Only your words are gonna get you out of the water now.
And now they're also they're starting to lean into the fact that witnesses are being harassed.
They have in the last three three hearings, they have brought it to light of all of the harassment that's been going on still to this day.
And which if you don't know, is a felony in and of itself.
If it's itself, that last tweet, that last message, that is that's chargeable.
Yeah,
that is intimidation of a witness.
This is he may not be in office right now, but this is still on Trump. All of this is on one man. Because it could all stop if Trump just said, "Okay, stop it, I lost," and it would all stop. But he won't do that at this point. And there's reasons why he won't do it at this point, mainly because he's so far into it, he can't back out now. But he's probably even got people telling him, don't stop, because if you do, we're all fucked as well.
Exactly. That's the thing, is they're all like, you know, if you go down, we all go down, so we can't let you go down. It's kind of like it's kind of like a domino effect, and they're all sticking together, because if one just you know, walks out, then they all fall apart. And that's true. And it's kind of like mob mentality, like that. Isn't that how mobsters do it? Like, you know,
rats on a sinking ship.
You're in it till you're in it, or you're, you know, gone. You know,
I mean, it's going to be just like rats on a sinking ship.
What it is, and it's already
One
started.
starts
People
to
are
jump,
coming forward,
and then all of a sudden, everybody starts to jump, and that. I mean, you know, the one thing I did kind of disagree with Miss Cheney is that she didn't say that it, you know, all of this matters, yes, and you've done courageous things, but what really matters most in this country is for its citizens to stand up and decry this shit and say no more. Absolutely not. We are not putting up with it. We demand that something be done with it.
Yeah, well, she didn't.
That's something we all need to do. We all need to stop sitting here. I mean, hey, please keep coming back to the streams, though. We all, outside of these streams, need to get out there and say, hey, no, you can't continue to do this.
Listen, it's basically information is where it starts, like being informed about it, you know what's going on. For those of us who understand that the many outside of our country don't understand that during the hearings they're putting out all the information, yes, but the hearing, you know, this committee does get to recommend actions. They get to recommend actions. They don't get to do them, but they can recommend based on the evidence and pull it together that charges of witness tampering be done. They have that authority, especially in their own committee. If they can prove that during committee investigations, people who know better, like other committee members, officials, like congressmen and senators, actually threatened these witnesses, that is actionable. It is. They do have that authority there. They can subpoena. They do have some legal authority in that, right? And they can recommend.
Oh, yes.
They can put forward the opinion. Like they do get to come forward with an opinion when this is all over.
Since they are dealing with their witnesses, they have the right to now question those people who contacted their witnesses.
They do. And witness tampering is going on. Marikai, you're worried about Mrs. Hutchinson already receiving death threats. She has. That's why we're having this meeting, this hearing put forward now instead of July, because it was getting too hot. She was getting too much. They needed to get the testimony over with, hoping that some of it would abate, then the damage is done. That she would be under less pressure, because it was becoming such a barrage. They moved it up.
Or she's going into hiding.
They are probably going to have to put her, like, I would hope for her safety that she does go somewhere away and under good protection. Because these are people that are now, they were acting erratic before, and just imagine the pressure now.
Imagine the pressure that are on everybody who came forward. They are not going to be allowed to work within the Republican Party ever again, period. No more.
But I'm not so sure about that, Liam. We would hope that that's what happens, but this Republican Party is so shattered and so so in different different little groups. Obviously, we are witnessing one little group going their way while everybody else is just sitting there with like Republicans with their mouths open going, what the hell are you doing? Like, look at Miss Hutchinson. She's standing there going, why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you doing anything? Repeatedly for weeks. Okay. And she's like, wait, and she's a good, she's a Republican working for the Republicans, trying to move forward an agenda that she believes in, and looking at her co-patriots going, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are you doing? So we can't really trust that there is not a whole faction of them that would be still supporting this, and still want this to go forward, because, let's be honest, everybody's like, oh, Trump can never run again after this. Have you failed to notice that since the day he left office, he's been campaigning every day since? He has been on campaign. He does not believe he lost the election. He still thinks he's in the running for everything, that everybody wants him at the top, and he has been campaigning every day to get there. Don't, it's insane.
It will take either him being convicted.
Yeah, Colin, I can't wait.
Or it will take the Supreme Court saying, no, you can't run again because of all the shit that's gone down and what you've done within it.
Exactly. I would hope that good money would not go behind this fiasco. I would hope that they would think twice about this. But like I said, I've seen all this craziness going on for years, so I can't really say it won't happen because, of course, it's a 3-ring circus. How could it not?
And the circus continues.
How can it not? And the circus continues. But Colin's got a point. You want to get some humor out of it. Watch Colbert tonight. He's going to have a field day.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have
he
a
always
field
does.
day. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Definitely going to have a field day. And yeah. Oh, Paul, thank you. Oh, Ghislaine got 20 years. Only 20.
Well, I'm sure Colbert is going to be talking about something else.
Well, oh yes, I'm sure. Like, there's been a lot. And before you say that, can I say a little positive thing before we go into that one?
Okay.
I have noticed since yesterday. I did my stream on Sunday about the ramifications of the SCOTUS hearings, both of them. It did kind of go more towards the Roe versus Wade overturn than it did the guns, but I listed them both, and I listed actual opinions there from SCOTUS that you can read to find out how far they're going to go. All right, and we were all concerned about, especially with Roe versus Wade, the language and everything that was used in there, and some of the statements made afterwards about things going further. And yes, they are. But we knew that there were 13 states that were going to automatically, based on the overturn, have what they call trigger laws. But I'll let you know that I've already counted up to 7 states that have already pushed it to the Supreme Court to stop those trigger laws, to stop the panic. So their own state. Here's the encouragement thing that I wanted to say.
The Texas Supreme Court has already struck it down.
I had to say the T word. The Texas Supreme Court has already not struck it down, but put a hold on till they can evaluate. Yeah. But remember, we were just everybody was just hopeful. I am an atheist. I don't believe in any deity, but I would say common sense prayers. If you have to do something coached as a prayer, not necessarily religious, that common sense will prevail and that people will at least stop, take a breath, and freaking look at what's going on and prevent the avalanche of terrible things that could happen, which was all I was advocating for. And so I myself am feeling a little bit of grace towards humanity, which I had lost last week. It is coming back, and I wanted to share that with you.
I can help you lose this little hope that you have.
I know you were going to do it. That's why I had to get this out now, because
and now I'm going to crush your hope.
I know,
State
because
attorney,
in Texas,
the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton said on a News Nation show on Saturday, in a response to an anchor's question, that he would defend state laws outlawing sodomy as well as ones outlawing birth control and same-sex marriage.
Oh gosh, and we knew this was going to come. We knew this was all right. Here's the glimmer of hope on that one. It's Texas, for Christ's sake. What'd you expect? Okay,
true.
As long as he's just okay. So let's don't get too crazy. I do know that it's easy. I understand the fear. When you take away one right, why not all of them? Yeah. Okay.
Oh no,
I get that.
But what gets me is the majority of people in Texas do not agree with this guy.
They don't agree, and that's
but they elected him.
I know, but Trump was president. Come on, come on. Fools follow suit is all I have to say. Where one foolish thing goes right with the other, with the other, with the other. It makes it all possible. Well, listen, it was Texas, so please.
And trust me, later in the week, the next headline will be Ken Paxton found to have paid male prostitutes.
Exactly, or Tim Paxton complains about cheap blowjobs not being worth what they were in 1930. I get it. But still, what I'm going to say is save your panties for the knots that are surely to come. Quiz is what I'm saying. I mean, it's Texas. Let's not get that riled up. I mean, they're leaving anyway, right? Let's not worry about Texas.
You know, at this time, if I'm on the Supreme Court, I'm saying, hey, fuck it, let them go.
Thank you, Hawk Skull. I always have trouble with Ghislaine. It is Ghislaine, I know, and I always say it like a, the American that I am. I say Ghislaine, but I know it. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, Texas. Yeah, and I love people from Texas. Don't get me wrong. If you're from there, I don't mean to bash you, but the Texas politics is what I'm talking about. Just that bubble of Texas politics and that mentality there. I have fun with it every day, and I probably will continue to. So please don't take it personal. It's not against you if you're a Texan, but the politics there, they are ripe and rife for my humor because their ugly ass is showing, and I've got a right to point at it. I do.
Yeah,
I do. Those are the rules. Those are the rules.
If they're gonna say something stupid, we have the right to poke fun at it.
It is, and unfortunately, they give me plenty to talk about. If anybody has anything post-stream that they would like to say, I know I put the word respectful in there. It doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of a rant. I mean, I got Quiz up here with me. It's possible. You can say with me. When I mean respectful, I mean
I have not gone off on a stream. Yeah.
No, you haven't. You've been so, you know what? Because I think as I do, that it's more important to get the facts out there and the information. Yes, our opinion is, part of the entertainment. We get it. And we can go off and we could say some really horrible things. And
you want to know the reason why I haven't gone
off? Because there's no coming back from.
I'm a guest on your stream, and I'm not going to harm your stream.
Yeah, I think I think
flying off a handle.
I think the people here can tolerate opinion. I do, and so when I say respectful, I don't mean you can't say what you want. You know what I mean?
I don't think I can be respectful at this point.
Well, I've been in Discord with you. I know that we do get it out. We do get it out. There's just a place to get it out. He is colorful, and I applaud him for it. I love every part of it, to tell you the truth. To own your opinion and be proud of what you represent and who and what you want to speak for. That is a gift, and I'm glad you have it, and you should speak out. And I'm glad, and I'm actually honored that you chose to do it with me, because I'll be honest with you people, if it wasn't for Quiz, I wouldn't be out here even covering these hearings. It was important and necessary, but I wasn't brave enough to do it by myself. I'm not. I am that chicken bear. I wasn't going to come out here alone, for sure. And Quiz was the brave one to even approach me about it. So
really, I just made a small suggestion. That's all.
Yeah, a small suggestion to get your ass out there and talk, Bear. Like, somebody's got to do it. Why not you? Somebody's got to do it. Why not you? Yeah, okay, just a small little nudge as he threw me off the cliff. But yes, I went with it. Hey, welcome, Jeff. Welcome.
Wow.
Yeah, you're a little low, or can
sorry,
you turn up?
Hold on.
Oh, there you are.
Hold on.
There he is.
Better. Sorry, I've got
Mm-hmm.
not got very good microphone right now. Every hearing, this stuff gets crazier.
It was. It's like a well-written soap opera at this point, is it not? Like
it's actually, if you think about it, it is like a prosecuting attorney slowly building his case. I mean, I can see them up there. I mean, they just want to smile like, oh yeah, don't worry, we got more. And it's just like, let's put this on the fire. Oh, look at it. It's getting bigger. I mean, we're already up to a bonfire at this point.
I was going to say, putting things on the fire might not be the best reference to be using right now.
No, not right here. Yeah, because there is a lot of burning at the stake going on everywhere. Yeah,
considering there might have been some literal burning of things on a fire,
Exactly. Yeah, well, there was. I mean, Meadows obviously burned a hell of a lot of stuff from the office, but you are still a little low. Let me see if I can turn you up here. I'm going to play with your mic.
Give 2 minutes.
Kyle, I think Pat Cipollone is still young enough that he wants to continue to work as an attorney in DC, and he wants to be able to work with conservatives. I don't think Cipollone sides with them at all, but I don't think he wants to put himself out there to have fingers pointed to him. You know, he's going to be, let's face it, some of these people are going to come out of this looking like the next John Dean. And the other guy that was White House counsel, who, you know, once they quit, flipped and gave all their testimony.
Okay, I've just changed microphones. Is that better?
It's much better. Thank you. Thank you.
So I think Pat Cipollone just wants to continue to do a job. He doesn't want to retire. And yeah, personally, I think he's a chicken shit.
But
I just
politics.
shot
I
off.
think they all are in that boat. Like no matter what evidence they have to weigh out their futures, their families, what it's going to involve, and it can't be easy. I mean, look at all the harassment everybody who is speaking up is getting, and they know about it. Like they know what's being said because they're all closely involved, so they know.
And I'm sure Cipollone has been given plenty of pressure. I mean, from day one, I'm sure he was given plenty of pressure because.
I'm sure he has.
Meadows, I mean, he was pretty much telling Meadows to get off his ass and do something because this is going to end the presidency. It's not going to end just the presidency. It's going to end his legacy, period.
Yeah, that was
it is, definitely.
I mean, that's pretty. That was hearing that being said a number of times. I mean, these are people who are, obviously dyed-in-the-wool supporters of Donald Trump, but realizing. This is not gonna fucking go well. This is not gonna be good.
I mean, hell, even Fox News, Tucker Carlson and the other people realized on January 6th when it happened that everything else he said that he did that was great is going to be so overshadowed by this one day.
Yeah, but they're all thinking about employment opportunities. But we have to remember, Rudy Giuliani didn't come forward and look what's happening to him. He is already under indictment for several.
There was an assassination attempt on him this past weekend.
He's already disbarred in both places. I mean, I think simply he really does have to weigh on doing the right thing if he wants to even continue being a lawyer. He really needs to help to extract himself.
Cipollone, though, can point to the evidence and say, "Look, I was doing the right thing when I was there. Everybody's already testified to it. I can add no more to the testimony." That's exactly going to be his position.
I'll have you know that Trump didn't waste any time at all in responding to Cassidy Hutchinson, because it obviously hit a nerve because there's already a formal statement out. Would you like me to read it? It's actually
please do. I want to hear this.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle's Goldfish, for always having one eye on the news while she's watching me and sending the news to me. Thank you, Kyle's Goldfish, for this, because straight from breaking news out there, and all the way from England, by the way. You guys broke it and sent it first before Fox even put it on the news. Hey, you guys are watching.
Fox isn't going to put it on the news.
Yeah, but no, not this. Anyway, so right from Trump, and these are all quotes. Okay, remember, as I say this, it's not me. It's the orange one. Okay, just picture, I put my hair over my face like Cousin Nate and the orange one.
Imagine it's former President Donald Trump.
Maybe I should send it to you. Wait, maybe I should send this to you. You could read it in that voice. I can't.
Put it in a private chat.
Oh my God! Hold on. I think I will. Let me just copy the words. Hold on a second. We're going to read it, but I think it'll be better if you hear it in Trump's words.
Yeah, put a text in the private chat.
Oh, let me just. I have to grab it because I didn't have Twitter up on my computer. So talk amongst yourselves. It takes me a minute to get the potato into Twitter to grab this.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that's telling me that general though, who had to plead the Fifth Amendment, had to plead the Fifth.
Oh, he's already been declared. He's been declared a traitor from the day one. Did anybody go back to when Trump first got in office and all that fucking shit with Flynn? What the hell? He's still part of it. Like, oh my God.
What the hell? When you're asked the question, do you believe in the peaceful transfer of power? Why do you have to plead the Fifth Amendment on a question like that?
Well, what the hell? He's been saying that since like 8 years ago. Since day one, 8 years ago, he's been saying that. Am I wrong, Quiz?
No,
Every
you're not wrong at
no,
all.
no.
This
He's been
man,
saying, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, all through all
do
that
you
stuff,
know
way
who
back.
he
He's
reminds
40.
me of? This man reminds me of a certain character in a movie that goes out, takes a big deep breath and says, "There's nothing like the smell of
napalm in the morning."
in the morning."
Yeah.
Oh, how did I know?
Tell me he does not remind you of that man.
He does. He actually. Oh my
Nothing like the
God.
smell of napalm in the morning. Yep.
Oh my God. Help me. Oh gosh, help me. All right, let me see if I can get this. All right. Oh, will it let me copy the words? Oh, please let me copy all these words. Nope, I have to copy it as a.
You should get a copy of the text, surely.
I'm just but it's not letting me copy text because it's a photo. Hold on. Let me see if it'll just print it for you. Oh.
Yeah, I only say this because I'm on a mobile device, you see, so.
Yeah, are you able to open that? Can you, if you hit that link, will it open as the photo or no? Just
Let me try. Let me try. It might kick me from the stream though, so I don't know.
Okay, hold on. It's a.
Nope, it's saying it can't be found.
Oh,
The other thing I can
can't
do
be
is I
found.
can open it onto the big screen if you could read it. If I put it up on the big screen, will you be able to read it?
I won't be able to read it because.
All right, we're back to me.
I'm on a mobile, Claire. So.
All right. Well,
can you
we'll
tell
have
me
to
who
do
it is?
No. Hold on.
Who said it? Do you know?
Trump said it, but it's a picture. Hold on.
Yeah, but it's being tweeted by someone because I know it ain't Trump. He's not on.
Well, let me just find that because if I could find that on Twitter and just pull it up,
exactly.
that would
If
be
you can
great.
find the person who tweeted it, then you can look him up on Twitter and we can see it.
Not the whole article. I do have a link. Hold on, I'm pulling up the link that I have because then if I can pull up the link, I might be able to just copy the words from that instead of the photo. And hold on, just talk amongst yourself. I'm going to do this because his Trump impersonation is worth it. Don't go anywhere. Just don't go anywhere, Jeff. Don't go anywhere.
You just want me to do this, don't you?
Why
Yeah.
don't you pull up that article?
Oh, I got it. No, I got it. I got it. Because, no. Here. Yeah, no. I got it. Hold on. Oh my God, I think I could copy it now. Oh, come on, log me in. You know I love you, independent. You know I belong. So let's log me in. Quick. Let's go. Come on.
So on news sites for getting this. Yeah. So on news sites to get publishing this before the United States ones. That's interesting.
Not really.
Yes, I am. I'm giving. Whether you want it or not, Kyle, you are now a mod for on this channel, but you don't have to join the Discord or anything. But in order to pass this stuff along, Adam's right. Like you deserve to be blue, so you're blue until you beat me up. You're blue. I am now copying this. It's gonna work. I do believe, Jeff. It's gonna work. Hold on.
Okay.
If I could just call, and then I can put it in the private chat. You could read it from there. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. Oh.
Well.
Okay.
I can't see it in private chat yet.
Wait a minute. Hold on. It's not all there yet. I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
Because it's in different sections. It's not his whole.
Oh, okay.
Like because they don't go. All right. He said several different things. About her that I have to do separately. All right.
I'm going to get so much hate from your viewers because they think they'll actually picture me as Donald Trump now.
What?
I'm going to get so much hate from your viewers because they're actually going to picture me as Trump.
They won't care.
Yeah, well, you know what? If they didn't get either one of us when we had the, the C awards, then they're going to leave us alone. I think we're okay, Jeff.
Wow.
Yeah, we did actually go on to the hold on a second.
Was it quite a long statement then, or just this?
No, it's just that when you go to the article, it is all in pieces, and I have to put it together because they keep breaking it.
Yeah, I mean the committee left out a few colorful words, shall we say, that Mr. Trump said during that time, which really, wow.
Yeah.
See, the thing. Okay. Oh, is this it now?
No, it's coming.
If you go to the Independent over in the UK, you can read it yourself. But we'll get it up here. Don't worry.
It is definitely
wow.
lit. Yeah, just talk amongst yourself. He's coming.
It's yeah. I mean, see, I sort of jokingly said in the chat just before all this stuff kind of came out that I'd have actually almost had a bit of tiny respect for him had he actually had the balls to show up at the Capitol. Now I'm hearing he actually wanted to and threw a massive hissy fit and a tantrum because he couldn't go. I'm trying to grab the wheel of the bloody limo.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, I didn't admit he's an idiot. I mean, and while she's working on that, as we were talking earlier in the day when all this began, before all this began, we were talking about prayer in schools and the different religions around the world. So I went ahead and, you know me, I am now becoming spiritual, and I'm going to start taking up some religions. There's 5 of them. I'm going to take up the Lingam religion. I'm going to take the American and shine the Tarawayahama in Japan. These are all religions based on the worship of phallic symbols or penises.
Okay. I just said, like, when I saw that whole news yesterday, I'm just waiting to see what the Satanic Temple's going to do. I'm just waiting to see what they're going to do here.
Yeah, he.
That's the first one.
There it is.
This is
the first. There's going to be 3, so go ahead with that one.
Okay, so
Mr.
this is the
Trump,
first bit of it.
Please tell us about Cassidy Hutchinson.
I hardly know who this person, Cassidy Hutchinson, is, other than I've heard very negative things about her, total phony, and a leaker. And she requested to go with certain others of the team to Florida after having served the full term in office. I personally turned her request down. That's the first bit.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you very much.
Gosh.
That's Mr. President to you.
And they call him the streak. Come again, look at that. Fast thing on 2 feet.
Oh no, here we go. Last 2 words. There you go. There's number 2.
This is the second bit, okay?
Mr. Trump, can you tell us a little bit more about Cassie Hutchinson and what is her motivation?
Please go.
Well, why would she want to go with us if she felt we were so terrible? I mean, I understand that she was very upset and angry, and I didn't want her to go or be a member of the team. She is bad news.
Bad news. I know.
Bad news.
Everybody.
She's part of the Main Street media.
Oh, yeah, Donald, by the way, Donald.
Bad news.
You have no fucking idea how much bad news she is for you, quite frankly, right now.
She is very, very bad news for you. Let's just be clear that Trump routinely claims not to be familiar with anybody that knows anything that's going on, really, the truth behind
No. He
or who are critical.
Only of those who are critical of him. He suddenly forgets who they are.
They obviously he doesn't know their name. Like they weren't even working with me. They were there every day, but I don't know them. I don't know
his
them.
own chief of staff will suddenly become the bad guy if he ever goes.
Well, if Mark
That's
Meadows
right.
wants to save his reputation, he better start talking soon, and that's going to happen, isn't it? We'll
Well,
just
he's already screwed his reputation. His own aide is out here testifying what he did. I mean,
Yeah,
what
but
kind
he-
of an? Oh, I need to
Well,
say
he
this.
does have the opportunity to do the right thing and come forward. And
We need
let's-
in this country. We needed this around the world. We need a world
Mhm.
government to come together
Mhm.
and take on the gaming industry, because this man had 2 fucking phones in his hand. He was playing Candy Crush and Battle Mobile, the war on different phones.
Yeah.
I mean, this man has an addiction. He couldn't put his phones down.
Yeah, he called. But Trump is calling Hutchinson a leaker. Like, she bad news and she's a leaker because she's telling the truth. Like, I mean, this is the kind of
Anybody who tells bad
harassment you're going to have to put up. But Kyle's right. Like, they went on to say that during the testimony he was actually live and posting on Truth Social, which means this hit a nerve. Like, if he gets right on there, then he's like, holy shit, he's coming down. Like, he's doing counter methods. He's doing counter methods from like step 1. And that means that there's probably a lot of truth in what she said. I mean, just
I'd like to see. I mean, I'd like to see him do an old school, like we used to see on Twitter, just total meltdown from him.
Yeah.
You know, but one of these hearings.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Mr. President Scummer.
Mr. Trump.
Mr. President. No, I'm just going to call him Mr. President Scummer. I can't put the Trump name on him. I like Jeff. He's okay. Don't do that to Jeff, okay? Mr. President Scummer, this question, please. Did you forget that she was sitting, they were showing photos during this hearing of her sitting only 4 feet away from you on Air Force One and in the Oval Office, but you claimed not to know her and you didn't want her around her, and you kind of voted her off the island. How do you answer that? Like,
well, first of all, I think your line of questioning is very rude. I don't like. But
yes. Actually,
I don't even. I know. I come across a lot of people. I can't remember all of them.
Mr. President, she was a woman sitting 4 feet from you. How do you not know her?
Well, I don't. This is your line of questioning is very rude. Now, is OAN here? Can I speak to OAN?
May I please have a representative of OAN, please? Would Fox please enter the building? Like, hello?
Mr. President, how's your golf game going now?
There you go. OAN, enter the building.
Well, my golf game is very good. I should have been like one of those PGA golfers. But
what do you think about the LIV tournament, Mr. President?
I'm sure it's a very, very good tournament.
Supporters of Mar-a-Lago and the New Jersey, club. Oh yeah, are they practicing there? You making money off them? That's looking good, right?
That motherfucker would probably say that too.
Paga golfers, Huxley's gonna make me spit my coffee. I gotta put my cup down. Oh my god!
He would definitely praise the LIV tournament at this point. Oh yeah, hey,
that's right.
More competition.
Okay, here's the miracle of here's the question. Here's the miracle of the whole situation. How was that woman 4 feet away and not grabbed?
Well,
he was eating his McDonald's.
Listen to what she says. She's clearly a very hateful person, and clearly she's quite ugly. She's not my type.
She has scruples, so she's obviously not the type.
Probably she's not the sluts that I normally hang with.
I was speaking to my good friend Vladimir.
Oh yes, please, yes, because that's why she's not your type. She's got honor to the country and wants to do the right thing. But yeah, let's just throw that in there.
I mean, I'm going to assume that I'm probably going to assume there's not a P tape with Cassidy Hutchinson. Yeah.
I hope not. I do hope not. No, I'm sure there's not. Yeah, actually, but no, that was funny. Oh my God.
Although in a way she's metaphorically taken a massive piss on him today. So
oh, she sure did.
Yeah.
This is the P tape we all wanted to see. This is it.
Yeah.
The one we heard today was better than any of them. Oh no, definitely. I'd rather hear it in the truth, but that was good. But yeah, it's funny. He doesn't remember her, but he remembers turning her down. He could come up with a motive as to why she would be doing all this. I didn't let her have a job at Mar-a-Lago. I wouldn't bring her to Florida. Like that's everybody's dream. Yeah,
we all know. And let's face it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I got interested in White House stuff by watching West Wing. Sorry.
Oh my God, I loved that show.
And we all know from
you
that
know who
show
I love the most is
that
Toby.
the president knows the chief of staff's secretary. Absolutely knows who she is. Knows who they are. Sees them daily. He doesn't bust into his chief of staff's office. That's a no-no. I mean, he goes through the secretary, gets that.
Exactly.
So he knows who she is. He's lying out his teeth.
Would he even know who half of his cabinet are, though? Because I mean, he sacked and replaced so many of them.
Exactly.
The only one he probably remembers is DeVos, because she completely gutted the education system.
Well, yeah, and also they've been in payment together with the brother for the last 25 years. Of course, he knows. Yeah, like, they're on a first name basis. The whole family.
I'm not gonna give Secretary DeVos or whatever her fucking name is any respect because she left because of what he tweeted at 4/17. I'm not gonna do it because for 4 years she gutted the educational system of America.
Sure did.
Completely gutted it.
No, she privatized it for their own financial gain. Let's just call it what it is. Like follow the money back. They made laws. They took away laws. They took away protections that allowed privatization that only benefited that family.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Yeah, she's not in the right. Yeah, just follow the money. And Betsy's as dirty as they come.
I mean, she found the right moment to step off without getting yelled at.
Oh, well.
That's all. That is all. Everybody's attention is on Trump. She can slide out the back door. Nobody's going to yell at her.
When people say, well, why didn't we do anything about this while it was going on? Remember that the dismantling of all of the committees, of all of the checks and balances took place. They actually gutted the CIA, the FBI of all of their acting chiefs and didn't replace them. And everybody's scrambling around like freaking crazy. I'm serious. When they took law and order and freaking tried to make it into a land of chaos so nobody knew what was going on, they sure did. All of those committees that we have that just, the oversight committees that we have to make sure that things like Betsy making rulings that would only her family were in place. Like that committee was gone before she did that. Like they made sure that Walter, you know who I'm talking about. What's Walter's last name? I always call him Walter because I feel like I'm on a first basis. The guy.
Is there a final part of that statement, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a final part of that statement with his, or is that it?
Oh no, the third part was the part that I said about him always doing that. I thought it was his quote, but it wasn't. He wouldn't admit to it. It was them saying that he actually always does this to anybody that speaks out against him in a critical manner. He always either doesn't know them, or they did, or they're acting out of vengeance because he didn't give them a job someplace. Basically.
Yeah,
it was.
In other words, it's like. In other words, he's kind of it's like pleading the fifth, effectively, when he doesn't know. Yeah, when he doesn't remember,
you could say this one. You remember he said this, Jeff, about the other one. Yeah, he says this about every woman that has anything to say about him.
Anyway, wow.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I think I think they have laid out a hell of a case so far for the DOJ. And by the way, there was movement this weekend with the DOJ.
Yeah.
Certain Mr. Eastman got a knock on his door early morning Was it Saturday or Friday? Anyway, it was either Friday or Saturday. They woke him up and they took his phone.
They subpoenaed his evidence that he won't come forward with. They took it.
Yep. The FBI grabbed it because the DOJ said, "Go get it. We want to see it."
The DOJ said, "We won't come forward willingly. We're telling you we want you to come forward and be part of this, and you don't want to give us the evidence." Okay.
I will tell you this. I think it will be I think whatever recommendations this committee makes, if they're not followed up on, I think that will be such a travesty for the United States.
Well, here's the thing. Here in America, a lot of them, and I think, somebody had put it in the chat earlier. Unfortunately, it will be used to actually garner support for Trump, as if this is some kind of witch hunt, or we're wasting money. The Democratic way to just waste money to find shit out.
But I think it may be even more. It may be more productive though. That I think, and I think you pointed out just before I came in, if they are more inclined to, should we say, go after some of the other people that were nearer to him though first, and they start realizing, oh shit, we're in deep shit here. But that's just why I thought it was quite interesting that the chairman of this thing and so is basically saying, hey, if you suddenly grow a conscience here or you remember something.
He nicely said it, as if you remember something, not like, oh yeah, if you finally find your balls, please step up.
Yeah, which effectively is what he was saying. Like basically saying, now might be a really good time to find your balls and find some sort of little bit of integrity and come clean now. And that was it was a very subtle. It was, it wasn't even that subtle. It was pretty blatant. It's like, hey, you think it was basically saying, this is not gonna go well for you. But if you want to basically come forward, now is the time to think about doing that.
It was a very nice way to say, read the room. Like, come on, people, read the room. Like, you don't have much time left. Read the room. Do what you need to do to protect yourselves. Bring yourself forward. Do the right thing.
And it will be. And like you said, you get one of them to flip. Get one or two of them to flip. Then it could be a domino effect there.
It could be.
I'd
break the chain of denial. Yeah, once they break.
I'd love it to get to a point where he denies who he knows who Rudy Giuliani is. But
What? I was waiting for that because he's already. There is an article that I list in all of the hearings now that updates everybody that was charged. Everybody was asking me how many of the protesters got charged, what happened. It's updated all the time. It's like an automatic article that always. And you can.
I had never heard this actually before today, and maybe it's been out there, and I just hadn't heard it. So this is, if you haven't heard it, it's news to you, kind of thing. The fact that he was even on the 7th, contemplating giving pardons to people directly involved in that riot.
Why did he
even if you're thinking about that?
This is it. The funny thing is, before he left office, he tried to see if he could guarantee pardons for his whole family in advance in case they came up on charges.
And the reason.
He was actually asking them for the legal ramifications and whether he could pardon himself. If he could pardon himself.
But there are legal reasons why he couldn't.
Yeah. Of course.
And it was simple because you have to list the crimes that were committed.
You have to actually be committed. You actually have to be guilty of a crime.
You have to go and list what you're getting pardoned for. You just can't say I'm pardoning him for anything he might have done between this date and this date.
I know, but you can't do that.
You have to be explicit on this.
You have to be convicted of a crime.
And it would have to be, and generally as well, wouldn't it have to be the following president or whoever that pardons you?
You would think, yes.
Well, I mean,
Nixon was never convicted. Nixon was never convicted of a crime, but he was pardoned.
But he was hard to the accusation because they were setting it up that he's already, you've got charges ready for him, but we're gonna, if you go through with it, we're gonna let him go. And that was, yes, you can do that, but he was under investigation and indicted. So there was
There was something I mentioned in the chat, actually, and I mentioned this on Twitter as well when I was seeing this. I mean, Claire, you know my friend One Ring, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Kyle is sending me back to my DMs. I got to read this for you guys to see.
Oh.
Are you kidding me, Kyle? Already? He's a liar already. Which article is this coming from? Okay, here's the article. Donald Trump claims to hardly know an aide to his former chief of staff after her damning testimony to the House Select Committee investigates his baseless stolen election narrative and whether he knew a mob of supporters would commit violence at the U.S. Capitol. He said, I hardly know this person. And all of that. I said in another, okay. I didn't want to request that we make room for people with guns to watch my speech, he wrote. Who would never, ever want that? Not me. Okay, among the dozens. So where is it? Okay, Miss Hutchinson also testified that Mr. Trump threw a meal against the wall. Yup. Where is this? Okay, so the corrupt.
See, that's the one bit that's the one. That's the one.
Wait, here it is. Sean Davis, okay? The corrupt January 6th committee's new surprise witness was so appalled by Trump and January 6th that she was planning to go to work for Trump at his Florida residence 8 days after January 6th. Article was published on January 14th. I'm Cassidy, Hutchinson, and aide to, all right, okay. Trump aides who may work for him, and they actually show a picture of them two together right then and there.
But, you know, he's an old man, so he forgot.
Yeah, he forgot that she was going to go live. Oh, wait. Trump plans to live at Mar-a-Lago and employ some of his current aides. And in that article, he's got the picture of her with him.
He wasn't going to employ her as an aide. He was taking her down there to be a ball boy or a ball girl for the golf course.
I'm telling you, this is an article from Bloomberg, and the title of it is Trump plans to live at Mar-a-Lago and employ some of his current aides, and right next to it is Mark Meadows' assistant, Cassidy Hutchinson, standing right next to Trump in this article.
And he's not looking at her.
But he doesn't know her, and he didn't offer her a job or anything. Oh my God, Kyle, that is so funny. Oh my God, thank you. I know the bottom two.
I think he might have just done a. He's just done a self. I mean, this is the thing that. But I mean, they're obviously doing this. Now it's just like, oh, but she obviously. It's obviously something about her testimony that is a bit damning. The fact that they've already like, oh, we got to smear it. We have to smear this woman.
Well, there's a couple of things. There was a couple of things. She is coming out that it's not just a generalized statement that he was supporting what they were threatening to do to Mike Pence. It actually came out of his mouth and somebody heard it, and somebody credible who's always in the room gave a deposition, and that would be Cassidy Hutchinson, gave that deposition that was said, and it was reaffirmed by other people. Okay, that's credible right there. Also, the fact that she could prove that other people within the Senate and Congress knew about it, specifically the person she worked for, Mark Meadows, obviously knew what was going on and chose to do nothing, which means it was a concerted effort between a bunch of people, and that there were talks.
I think we can.
I
think we can establish one thing as well. I think we can establish one thing. If Trump threw a meal against a wall, it clearly wasn't a McDonald's because he would never let that go to waste.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I was just saying before you got that article, I was saying my friend One Ring about over a year ago, like when not long after January 6th, they did a video analysing that and Claire, I don't know if you know this, but Ring was in the military and there was a military intelligence analyst.
Oh, okay.
So occasionally they will do something, like analysis. I'll tell you what, it's amazing how well they got this. They seem to have got a lot of this right, even with limited information they had at the time. I tweeted Ring and says to say, hey mate, your analysis, your video is holding up very well.
Very well. Mm-hmm.
It's And it was, so it, of all the things that happened around the Capitol and removing the security and the failures and so on, I mean, it's, I was like, Ring did an amazing job, and it seems like that video is standing up very, very well.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, speaking about, he knew, he could tell by some of the things that was going on. But, you're right, Arcanic. Some of the statements that were made are definitely very, very damning, and the ex-president Trump does have things to worry about when people are actually quoting him. They're his own words. They're the things that he did. I don't know how he can twist it, but, being the charlatan that he is, I'm sure he will. That's the other thing we were talking about in the chat very early on, is that unfortunately it is true that all of this will be twisted to somehow be of a benefit to him. He will try. They will try.
They'll try. I'm not sure the way they're setting all this up. I'm not sure it's going to work out in their favor at this point.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, often we think the common sense thing that people will open their eyes and say, okay, let's prosecute. Let's make sure this doesn't happen again. I really hope so, because I don't want this to happen again by a Democrat or a Republican, by anybody. Okay, I'm not slamming anybody. This kind of stuff.
No, that's the thing. Whatever. I keep saying this every time I'm on. This is not partisan politics, whatever political party you support, whatever. Aside in this is totally irrelevant in this issue.
It's about procedure, policy, and consequence. Okay, it is about the rule of common law and what should and shouldn't be done, and that's how we have to look at it. And then I hope that people will just drop down their red and their blue and forget about Republican versus Democrat and vice versa, and just say let's not look at him as a Republican or this, that, or as the Republican Party. Let's just look at it as the right thing to do so that it doesn't happen again for anybody. Because I assure you, if it was the other way around and the Democrats were having to run this hearing against a Democrat, you would be saying that. You would want the rule of law to come forward and make sure it doesn't happen again against your party or anybody else's party. So, that's what we hope, that the Republicans that are not speaking out because they're afraid of the ramifications of their party will do the right thing. Because if your party starts to do the right thing, your party can only get stronger. You can't let this, look at it, look common sense. And I hate to even think of it this way. I want you to do the right thing because it's the right thing, obviously. But why don't you do the right thing just because you're going to look better? Just because if you really want your party to go forward, then don't turn the narrative into hiding this and throwing it under the rug. Step forward, polish it off, clean it up so that you can go forward rightly. Okay, that's what I'd say. Use it to your advantage that way.
Well, this is something, and I'm saying this is a complete outsider to the United States, and this is to basically any member of the Republican Party that might happen to be listening to this or whatever. Guys, the reputation of your party is going to be tarnished for decades if you close ranks around these people, this man and these people. Just think about that. Do the right thing.
We can only hope, and we can only hope pressure from the people, and that they can see some of the tides that people will start speaking out sooner. But I'm always perplexed by polls. People will get polled one way and then the opposite happens, and I'm like stymied like every single time. It's always people are gonna go where they're gonna go. But Kyle, Ghislaine Maxwell, 20 years. I mean, at least sentenced now.
Well, I never thought I would see.
I'm shocked. I'm kind of shocked because she's been threatened also repeatedly.
Well, I never thought it would be. I never thought this, but it's official. It's actually official now. Robert Maxwell is not the biggest crook in the history of that family. I never thought I'd ever utter those words.
Jeff. Yeah, he raised his daughter well. There you go.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, you will actually have a little look into the history of Robert Maxwell, and Donald Trump threw a hissy fit at him. Because Donald Trump was trying to buy, when he first got interested in politics or whatever in the late 80s, he tried to buy the New York Daily News, the newspaper. and Robert Maxwell beat him to it. And like there happened to be like a big party or something on Maxwell was hosted that night, and Trump did have an invite, but basically threw a hissy fit and wouldn't attend because he was pissed that Maxwell got the newspaper that he was after.
Well, that's true. 100. Yep. And that's the way, he always throws the hissy fit about anything that just doesn't go his way. And you're right, Liam. He's already twisted it because he thinks that Pence deserved anything he got because he went against him and wouldn't do what he wanted. Absolutely disrespecting the office and his service to his country and everything. It was just because he didn't agree with him. And that's very petty. It shows the man. Hey, this is what I want to put out there. How can anybody look at this, not see the character of the man and still stand behind him? You see the character of the man, or shall I say the lack of character of the man that you are actually putting your weight behind, and it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to you. It's a little, it makes me think agenda. It makes me think, people want things for the wrong things, wrong reasons. And some of this political pressure is not even political at all. It's just like the big game of chess that only the American people are losing.
That's kind of normal.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, in a I mean, essentially, the American people. It's a big game of chess, and the American people are the fucking pawns in this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the sad thing.
The casualties, actually, and it's unfortunate. But we're hoping that the tide will change. I don't want to leave it on too negative a note, but we are going to wrap it up. I think I don't know if there's going to be another surprise hearing on Thursday, but I'll let you know. You'll probably hear something tomorrow about that election on Laura. Yes, there's a primary on Lauren Bobbitt, and I don't know when we hear about that on the primary, Kyle. I do believe that polls usually end around 8 o'clock, wherever that is, and we will probably hear about it in the morning finals. I'm sure they'll be reporting on it all night, all night.
I'm sure I reckon she'll get through. They don't normally remove people in primaries, do they? Standing.
Yeah. And thank you, Arcanix. I'm glad the rain has stopped. You got 6 frames left. I hope. All right, go snap before you get it. And thank you for being here and modding, Arcanix. Thank you to all my mods and to everybody who came to hang out with us while we covered this. It's always better in a crowd. It's always nice to have everybody around and hear your opinions about it from all over.
You all you people in the chat, you're lovely people. Your moderators are lovely. You're not like the crooked Democrat.
You do know I'm a Democrat, don't you, sir? I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I thought you were independent.
We're one of them. We're one of them. Yes, thank you, Hawkskull. We're going to continue. As long as they have them, I'm going to have them all. And for anybody that wants to catch up, if you didn't see some of the beginnings, I have a playlist on the back of the channel that covers every one of the hearings the same way. We don't talk during it. You can hear word for word the testimony and the statements and the speeches that were made. Some of them were quite great. A lot of good information there. Let you know where things are heading. And you can go over them at your own pace, at your own time. But I do recommend not putting Quiz and I at double speed because damn, do we sound hysterically funny. We both have those kind of voices. You won't be able to get through it. I assure you. It's like, don't do it. Don't do it.
By the way, Betsy, I appreciate that in the chat as well. So.
Yes, he is too funny, isn't he? He makes a great Trump. He's the only likable version of Trump that I know. This is just Jeff. That's it. That's the only way. It's the only one I can tolerate. He's very good. On that, I'm going to head off because I want to go watch Answers and Reasonings at 4 o'clock in a couple of minutes over on their channel. And make my head hurt with some philosophy discussion. Here we go. Then they're going to torture myself some more. It's always a good one over there. So if you're interested
I normally watch them on catch up, but yes, if you want some very stimulating conversation, yes, go over and watch those guys.
Well, good on you, Shill. If you could listen to me at 2 times speed and understand what I was saying, like that's a talent. Because yeah, it's pretty hard for me. But thanks. Thank you, everybody. On that, I'm gonna put that. Hey, Quiz, thanks again for
Glad to
hanging
be
out with
here.
me and doing this.
Glad to have made it. And anybody in the
Sometimes
chat
so.
wants to help me with my new religion, I'll be happy to worship at your feet.
You're gonna have a new religion? Okay, I gotta catch up. I gotta go.
I'm taking 5 new religions.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that one. Oh, he did send me an article. I didn't share it with them yet. I thought maybe I'd do an effort with it.
Had to fill time,
Later.
so I shared it with them. But I'm taking up these 5 new religions.
I actually am ordained in Dudism, though. I should point out that's the one thing.
He is in the Church of Dude. Yeah.
Church of the Latter-day Dude. I am ordained, and it's like, but then it's not really much of a thing, because one of the whole things is about that is not to proselytize. So I might have said too much already.
Do you have altar boys that kneel?
All right, we're out. Here we go.
Yeah. Actually, if I'm going to mention do this, that maybe there's one line from that whole thing that is appropriate to this current situation and what we've been covering in this stream. That's these words. Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
Oh, we are out. See y'all next one. Thanks,
Bye,
Jeff.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.